Well, we're back. Day after, Oscar nominations are out, and we have Koho back because gotta have Koho back. Zack is still here.
I have not left. I've been on the screen for 24 hours waiting to talk. I actually
Zack,
didn't even see the Oscar nominations because I've been staring at the StreamYard.
we had an unfortunate communication error where I just kept telling Zack different times we were going to record, so he was stuck in a StreamYard in a perpetual loop for 24 hours. It's a little bit of a rough beat.
J.K. Simmons showed up and shot him in a trash can. It was a real long evening.
I'm pretty sure I'm about to meet the love of my life, though, so I'm going to stay in the soup for a little longer.
Is it the GOAT?
It's the GOAT.
The GOAT. A song featuring me, Kaleb Koho. The Forks. Go buy it on iTunes. 2 for teams. Wherever music's sold.
Absolutely. Let's start this off with a little general thoughts. Go to our guest first. Mr. Koho, when you woke up, you saw these noms. What was like the initial top line thought about them as a whole?
I was kind of confused because I think these noms are good, and I was like not expecting that feeling. I mean, there are obviously snubs. There are every year. There will be every year. But for the most part, I was like, wow, this is like a lot of good stuff and not a lot of bad stuff. And for me, that's a welcome change. Obviously last year the big awards were great, but this year it's like nice that for the most part, it was, a couple nice surprises and nobody, too major that we like figured was a lock that we were excited about that got shut out. So it was interesting.
Absolutely. Same question to you, Zach. What do you think? Top line.
It took me a while to remember that they happened. So I didn't look at it until like close to like 11 o'clock. I think after doing the show, maybe it less like, half this was like predictable, but the stuff that was like surprising was pretty exciting. Like Keith Stanfield getting in, was exciting. I think even some of the stuff that was surprising that maybe isn't stuff I love. Like I'm not as big a fan of Thomas Vinterberg's movie that I'm thinking, so I was trying to lag till I said
Another round.
Thank you. And I was being a fan, but still, like I find that like a cool pick. Like I still like acknowledge that is a good route for the.
You're just so bummed about Sorkin's brilliant direction not being acknowledged for the great film Charlie Chicago 7.
I think at least it shows some change on the Academy, and there's still definitely some old man picks, but we're definitely getting a little hipper, a little
old man. Nice.
I have no idea what I said that gave that bit. Am I the old man?
No, Gary Oldman.
Oh God, I need direct connections. I need his name said or Meng said like right before. Either way, I think there's a trend of flowing. The movie's getting cooler. The idea of Oscar bait is fading somewhat or changing. That I find interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely
Oscar bait's just kind of coming to mean any serious drama that gets released in the fall.
Yeah, it's definitely less of a when you don't have a Weinstein era campaign vehicle pumping out these awards. Oscar bait certainly doesn't mean the same thing as it did 10 years ago. It was I agree with you. It was a good batch of nominees, and even in the categories where there were surprises, there were categories going in. We kind of knew that the 4 and 5 were not set. Like Glenn Close is a kind of a classic example. I didn't think that was going to be her in that category, but we knew that category was not solidified all 5, so that when you saw it, you were like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense that they just put a different 5 in than some of it than you thought. There wasn't really anything insane. Sorkin following out was maybe the most surprising, but like, thank the Lord. Thomas Vinterberg's Another Round is one of the best movies of the year. It's fantastic. And also Sorkin's like bad at directing Trial of the Chicago 7. It would have legitimately been like a really like, oh, you're just giving that to Sorkin because you know Sorkin's name. And when you put it in the rest of a category where there's a lot of other good directors, it's nice to see Vinterberg as that 5 rather than the just obligatory, oh, we gave Sorkin an Oscar nomination.
I will say, though, we're excited about, it seems like there's a bit of a change, right, in the Academy. I do wonder if us being in the middle of a pandemic limits the amount of sort of glad handing that you can do, because most of that stuff's in person, right? It's like throwing parties, giving out party favors, sending, like some of it's sending stuff, but a lot of it's like in person, like the actors showing up to your thing and like you being grateful to meet them or that kind of stuff, So I wonder if like this is just a weird aberrative year where the in-person sort of glad ending is not as possible. So I wonder if maybe things will change back next year when they're back to having big parties and big celebrations and big Oscar campaigns in person. It's possible that it won't, and this is a good sign, but I do think that we should caution against like this being, set in, the future of the Academy is going to be this trailblazing thing. I do wonder if it's a circumstantial thing as well.
I just think there's a for sure second vibe that's been added, kind of since Moonlight time. Like there's definitely like room, a couple selections that are being saved for some younger, hipper choices. There's always going to be, this year the Trial by Chicago 7. There's always going to be those. In the Minkson case, but I do like Mink a lot, but it kind of still fits that old man vibe, the traditional what could be Oscar nominations. But I think there is now space for Minari's. There is space for
6 nominations. Messiahs. That's crazy for both of those, I think.
And I think that's just consistent with, with Parasite game last year. And I think there's room. It's just going to be more interesting and diverse selections.
Let's talk about a take I've seen on the internet that I think I would like to push back on, which is that these movies in Best Picture are only in Best Picture because this year had the pandemic. I would agree that's true on probably a couple of them. That a couple of those movies maybe wouldn't be Best Picture nominees in a traditional year. But I would like to say, for the record, I think that stuff like Promising Young Woman, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, I'm blanking on other ones that are in that category right now, Trial of the Chicago 7, a lot of those would have been nominees for Best Picture in literally any year. They just fit with the narrative of what typically gets nominated. Maybe Sound of Metal falls out. Maybe that's the movie that takes advantage of a year where there's just less big profile movies because of the pandemic and we had more streaming stuff.
That is one of the most pure Cinderella stories I've seen in the Oscars in a long time. Like that was a movie that was not big. I remember I saw it, I think at Middleburg Film Festival, which is like a digital festival. And it just seemed like it was like a pretty buzzy indie, like, Riz Ahmed's really good in it. And it seemed super under the radar. And it just, I think really like, it's like the audience just picked up on it. People loved it. And I think it got that groundswell and it just sort of ascended and kept ascending because that was not a hot property coming out of the studio, coming out of filming, out of post-production, like that nobody had that slated as like a big contender. And it was like the word of mouth thing. It's like great to see something that like truly felt like it was something that was like, the people actually really appreciated it and lifted it up. I mean, it's much different than, these bigger studios, someone like even like a Neon or A24, people that have become bigger players recently, in addition to like Searchlight. It's fun to see like sort of a slight outsider in that way. And, not that Amazon is this big outsider, but in general, like that movie feels like it has that sort of indie spirit that, a lot of this season lacks sometimes.
And I feel like that was also, I don't think that was the Academy's hope, if not my personal hope, at least, of when they expanded the category to more films, is that we get these underdog stories, these ones that, rode the, word of mouth kind of bandwagon to it, rather than something that was really promoting hard. And I don't think it's really came to that many years, but this is the first time.
Well, because I think a lot of times those the couple extra slots go to like sort of like the respected blockbusters, right? It's like the big scale movies with big budgets that are like, made by an auteur or like are really well made, something, like a Black Panther or even like, which it's not quite the same, but like a Get Out, it's like more of a populist thing. Whereas they're not really the versions of that this year as much. That's why like it feels like the sort of slightly more, interesting indie kind of off kilter stuff had a chance.
Well, this thing feels like
I talking about Midnight Sky got snubbed. Midnight Sky should have been there.
I think there's one thing that's really cool about this, like especially the movies that got a lot of nominations and the movies that got nominated for Best Picture, is it feels like there's a passionate fan base for each movie. Like there doesn't feel like there's the movie that's just like the movie that everybody acknowledges is competent and good. Like a lot of times the Oscars has those movies that get nominated for Best Picture and you're like, there's no hardcore fan base for this movie. It's just, it has the right actors, it has the right subject matter, it has the right director, it has the right studio, and it's well made, but nobody loves it. This movie this year really feels like there is a hive of support for almost everybody.
I feel like that's the father.
That's what I was gonna say. I think people think that's the father, but from everything I've heard about it, that's not actually the case with the father. When it's obviously not out yet, so no one like
really is out. Nobody's I am seeing it tomorrow.
Well, it's like just out, like it's literally just out like this week. Like nobody's really seen it yet. But from what I've heard about it, I've actually heard that it is way more interesting, and it's not like the more classic Darkest Hour, like staid historical drama.
That's a great example of one of those
sort
movies.
of thing. Where I do feel like this is a movie that is interesting. I've heard interesting things about the stage production before it was even adapted. So like this is always something that was kind of on my radar a little bit. So I think when it comes out, people will find out it's from what I've heard. Obviously, I haven't seen it. I could be totally wrong. It seems like it's more interesting than just your classic historical drama. Even something like King's Speech, obviously, which is like there's nothing particularly like. There's not one aspect that you can single out as like, oh, this is a really subversive and interesting take on this. Like, it feels like this is a little different than that from everything that I've heard.
But also the no one loves it thing, I feel like it could be kind of a myth because the whole way the Oscar voting is, you have to have number one votes. You have to have the high votes to get into the nomination at all.
I'm not saying specifically among the voter body. I'm saying in terms of the public response to these movies getting nominated. There is a hive of people that are going to go, yes, Mank, yes, Promising Young Woman, yes, Nomadland, yes, Minari. There are going to be people who are just over the moon about these movies getting the bunch of nominations. And I think that's
Mank
really
cool. It's kind of that too, though, Loki. I feel like a lot of people like and respect it. I feel like not a lot of people are like overwhelming, like, yes, this is my favorite thing. Even me, I really, really like the movie a lot. But it probably comes in at 4th or 5th in terms of my favorites of the nominees.
Yeah, agreed. It's like in my 20s, I think, overall or something. It's like it's definitely well done, but I don't think I'm out there singing the praises of.
I find myself defending a lot from people who like think that it's bad, which I think thinking it's like horrible is like way crazier than thinking it's like the best movie of the year. So like I definitely fall a little closer on that side of the scale. But I'm definitely again not like a vociferous like I'm the Mank guy,
No.
I actually have it as my number 2, by the way. After Nomadland, I haven't seen Minari.
What is the movie you stand for in this entire, like, of the big nominees?
I mean, Nomadland or Minari, really. It's like if either of those two wins, I'll be ecstatic. I mean, honestly, more than anything, not Trial of Chicago 7 is more of my thing. It's like that is a movie that like I have a big divide as far as like negative. But like, I mean, Nomadland and Minari were both in my top 5 of the year. Nomadland is like my second favorite. Minari waffles between 3rd, 4th, and 5th, sort of as the days go on. But those are two that I just would love to see win. The types of movies I would like to see win as well. The types of filmmakers I would like to be celebrated. So like that more sort of patient, thoughtful, gentle. It's like a little outside of the normal realm of what sort of Best Picture looks like. Generally with those kinds of like sort of slight outsider indie or movies that are sort of under the mainstream radar, they tend to be a little more obvious, right? Where it's like there's a big hook. It's like Slumdog Millionaire. It becomes this big blockbuster because it's like this fun conspiracy thing. Where these are movies that are more like patient and are just like about people being people and don't have like a big hook. So those are those tend to be the movies I like the most. And lo and behold, I love both of those movies.
And it's interesting you brought up the connection between Parasite last year and Minari this year. And I do think there's a big difference between them, is that Parasite does have that hook. Parasite has the hook of why people want to see it, because it does have the craziness and the twists and the stuff that you'll tell people the one sentence that'll make them to want to go see it. And Minari feels much quieter and much more just slice of life, what people do on their everyday life, just like more like not as flashy as something like Parasite.
It's an intimate family drama, which is not something that I think is really in vogue in the last 5 or 10 years. It's the kind of like movie that like sort of had its time sort of in the 70s and 80s, especially in the 70s. I think the sort of more quiet stayed, sort of like your kind of Hal Ashby sort of style stuff. But then this is like a sort of a different take on the sort of prestige drama. This is a movie out of Sundance that's like, oh, this is a really great movie. It's buzzy. It's been around for, it's had like a year cycle now. And now it's finally come around to be a big contender. And I think it's on the rise. You can feel it really sort of surging.
It does feel like the hottest movie right now. It feels like the movie with the most heat is Minari at this moment.
Yeah, it seems, once again, I haven't seen it yet, but it seems like the type of mature drama that people so often say that they are missing in Hollywood anymore. They don't make them like anymore. So for something to get the attention, maybe can bring, that mid-level movie kind of back to those mid-level dramas and get the attention. So, yeah.
Well, that's our overarching thoughts. Let's dig into each category one by one. Start with Best Supporting Actor. The nominations were Daniel Kaluuya, Judas and the Black Messiah, Leslie Odom Jr. for One Night in Miami, Sacha Baron Cohen, Trial of Chicago 7, Paul Raci, Sound of Metal, and then I think what is kind of the outlier for everyone, which is Lakeith Stanfield, also in Judas and the Black Messiah. I had the first 4 predicted. I had Bill Murray as my 5. Kind of an outside shot I thought we might get in because people like Bill Murray. Lakeith Stanfield is, I think, weird.
Shocking.
I think pretty shocking, to be honest, because I don't think it's not only that he is not really a supporting actor in that movie, it's that he had almost no buzz going into the Oscars.
And they campaigned him as best lead actor. The studio put him out there, and even he had this Instagram post today where he's like, I don't know what the fuck happened, but
I don't think just that, but the Oscars just decided there is no lead actor in Judas.
Yeah, that's
they
weird.
Both of them, because you can go. I can see the other way. We're gonna say Daniel Kaluuya is the lead. That happens all the time.
Yeah, Fred Hampton is the bigger, public figure in this huge thing. But yeah, he's clearly the lead of the movie, right? The movie's told through him. It's like a vehicle of his journey is like the journey of the movie.
Is this the real?
Kaluuya goes to jail for like 20 to 30 minutes in the middle of that movie, and we just focus on Lakeith Stanfield because he's clearly the lead in the film.
And I will say, people saying that it's just because he's the title character. You don't have to be just because you're the title character does not mean you're the lead of the movie. But in this case,
the title characters. There's a Judas.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But that's why people. That was a joke, right? Where it's like, well, if Judas and the Black Messiah are both supporting, who's the lead? Is it the and? Which I thought was kind of a funny joke. But yeah, I do think it's clearly his. The thing is, I'm stoked he's nominated. This has happened in times before. I think a lot of times where people cry foul about category fraud, like. I don't think Viola Davis is category fraud for Fences. I don't think Philip Seymour Hoffman's category fraud for The Master. But I do think this is a weird placement that doesn't really fit.
But there is definitely some idiots in the Academy that thought Jesse Plemons was the hero of the film.
I think so. And I'll get into that a little later when we talk about the kinds of Black stories that they acknowledged this year. That I think it's kind of interesting. But I do think that, it's still a cool surprise. It's still like one of those things. I'm a little bummed. I predicted, and I shouldn't have went with my heart, but I wanted Alan Kim. I thought that he was kind of surging after the sort of Critics' Choice Award for Best Young Actor. It felt like he was kind of the big thing. I think it was just a little bit too late maybe for him. But it's a good category. I'm so confused why Sacha Baron Cohen's the person singled out from Trial. I think that Yahya and Rylance are just so much better.
I'm such a big Rylance fan.
It's cool to celebrate Sacha Baron Cohen for Borat. I think it's like sort of a dual nomination in a way. It's like not tipping the hat to his work in Borat as well. So I can't be too upset. Honestly, this is one of the better. The crop of supporting actors sometimes can be really shaky, and I really like these this year. There's no Sam Rockwell in Vice this year.
I'm really happy about Paul Raci.
Yes.
We have our 2020 episode coming out soon, and we both had Paul Raci pretty high on our supporting actor list. And for some reason, I had trouble buying into the Sound of Metal, hype that kind of came in the past couple of weeks.
It felt too small.
It felt like he was on the out, and he's from his story, he just seemed like a working actor, for a long time. I think in Chicago area, I can't remember, but it's nice that he gets his due because that is one of the most empathetic performances of the year, and
he's incredible in the movie. It's one of those performances. When I saw it, I was like, I feel like Riz is going to get the attention, and like deservedly so. I do think Paul. I was worried the whole time. I was like, he's going to get overlooked. It's going to be one of those bummers where it's this amazing supporting performance, and he's just not a name, so he doesn't get any traction. But somehow he caught on, and I think his performance just is that good, right? Where it's like, even if you don't know who this guy is, like you immediately kind of zero in on him. And it's amazing that he was, that we're able to celebrate someone like that who's he doesn't have any other big roles really in his entire career. He's like this sort of standard working actor. He's only been in like a handful of movies and a lot of TV. A lot of plays. Yeah. I think he's in Parks and Rec in like an episode or something. But yeah, he's just like this actor that it's just cool to see someone like this celebrated.
And he's not a hearing impaired person, but there's still a lot of authenticity to it. That I think we Hollywood gets challenged a lot for the lack of authenticity in its casting. So get someone who does speak sign language, who grew up speaking sign language, has a lot of connection to that community. I think was really important to that role coming off of.
I do. This is weird. I do worry in advance that because of this, Troy Kotsur in a film called Kodo that's coming out this year might get overlooked as like we did this already kind of thing, which is a great performance. Obviously, ways away.
But that guy is actually a deaf actor, correct? And Paul Raci is not.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. You mentioned Parks and Rec, and I instantly remembered where he's in Parks and Rec. He is the boss of. He is the boss of the incompetent animal control people in the episode where they have to catch the possum.
That sounds right.
Fairway Frank, he is their boss.
Oh,
that is such a random thing, and this guy's now sitting up here getting, Oscar nominations because he's amazing in the film.
The other two we haven't talked about. I think Kaluuya is pretty much a lock to win at this point. Maybe that changes over the next few weeks. I would be surprised. Leslie Odom is really good. I understand why he's the person from One Night in Miami that got the nomination. I do think that a lot of the other actors doing just as good, if not better work, but he's kind of, he's got the song, he's the buzzy name, like makes sense. So I mean, a really strong category, I think, top to bottom, something I'm pretty stoked about. And Lakeith is really good in Judas. As much as it's a weird category thing, I think his performance was kind of being derided a little bit, and I think I don't think it's quite as good as Kaluuya, but he's really good.
Yeah, it's a good category. I think Odoms is also, like Cohen, is getting a little extra bump because he has multiple things out there that people like
Sia's film Music, which he is in, I believe.
that's almost going to be his Eddie Murphy killer, maybe. That's his Morbid.
Yeah. If anybody knew it existed, which I feel like, I bet if you ask people if he was in that, nobody would know that.
Do you think he knows that he was in that?
It's possible. He might think it's a different movie. He's like, was that a music video? I was told it's music video. Like, what's going on? Sia? I don't know.
Yeah. It's one of those. Thank God we didn't get any music nominations. We did at the end of our last pod. We did have a moment of like fear where we were like, please don't give us a music or prom nomination. We really don't want to have to deal with that. And thank you, Academy. I'd like to say
we still got
you.
some weird ones, but we'll get to it a little bit.
We got some weird ones, but we didn't get those. Let's jump ahead. We got animated feature. We got Soul.
Running with the wolves tonight. Running with the wolves. Okay.
Yes, Soul, Wolfwalkers, Onward, Over the Moon, and then
the big surprise.
Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon.
Let's go. Yes.
Oh, shit. I legit missed that when I read through it. That's the first time I heard about it. What, did it get Croods? Did Croods not get in?
No, it did not.
For it. I'm actually excited about this. Shaun the Sheep movie is like maybe my second favorite animated movie of the year after Wolfwalkers. That's crazy. I honestly
thought is pretty consistently nominated though, right?
They are, but like I thought this was going to get snubbed because it came out in February on Netflix. It got dumped on Netflix in like February. This was not something that they even pushed. I was surprised it got in,
and I didn't realize it had come out until like April. So that
I was exactly in the same boat. It looked at me like 3 months to realize it was even available. Like it was just like one of those random things you're looking at the account on Letterboxd. And
I will say,
this is available.
I don't totally get the Over the Moon thing. I thought it was super generic. I think it's got cool music and good animation. I know there's not too many contenders, but it was weird to me that it was always so locked in as this surefire thing. But it's not the worst movie in the world. Many worse movies have been nominated for Best Animated Feature. So
all I care about is once I get my stimulus check, I'm investing it all into the For-Your Consideration campaign for Wolfwalkers.
That's a waste of money, pal.
It is by far a waste of money.
I've already started doing this. They've already shipped the Oscar to Soul. Pixar is waiting to start currently signing for it right now. It'll be there.
One day, something interesting will win a Best Animated Feature. One day.
It's nice to see that.
They've had some interesting.
Yeah, like Spirited Away one, right? Or did I make that up?
Yeah, that's the second winner ever. Spider-Verse is a great, not super shocking, but it's cool that they celebrate it.
When I mean interesting, I mean it's not Disney, not
Disney,
not one of the big studios, or Dream,
or even Dream.
No, that's not interesting.
I guess in some ways, Wolfwalkers getting a nomination is kind of a win because that's very good, but it's also on a incredibly forgettable streaming service that people don't watch.
Hey, they got 2 nominations.
They will now. Hopefully, they will now. Yeah, they got multiple noms.
Boys State didn't got good.
I don't think their problem is that they don't get nominations. Their problem is they have 7 pieces of content, overall on the entire.
Talk about Palmer like that one more time. You're getting kicked off of this podcast.
By the way, sorry to break this to you live on camera, but I did cancel my Apple Plus again.
That's fine. I think we saw everything we wanted to see on that.
I still want to watch Ted Lasso, but anyway,
this is not
TV.
Lasso too.
Never got that either. Oh well. Good category overall. Shaun the Sheep is surprising, but not that surprising. And we jump ahead. Animated short. We got If Anything Happens, I Love You, Genius Loki, Burrow, Opera, and Yes People. I predicted 3 out of the 5. Genius Loki and Yes People were kind of pretty outside it in terms of odds wise. They were not seen as front runners coming into this and kind of just jumped the gun. I haven't seen any of these. For me, it was just like an odds based decision.
You didn't see Burrow?
No.
Who are you?
No.
Okay.
I will just say I have to correct pronunciation from last episode. The short that I'm bummed did not make it Kapa'e Mahu, which is a Hawaiian short, which was like on track to be nominated. I'm super bummed that didn't get nominated because stuff from Hawaii rarely gets recognized. It would have been great to have a sort of cultural touchstone like that because people are really excited for it. But, what can you do? I mean, animated shorts, kind of a crapshoot. I think the same people tend to win. So even when it's like stuff gets buzzed, it's like, well, it's a familiar face, recognizable studio, a producer that we know. It just happens.
Yeah, Pixar dominates this. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a category where most people don't watch all of them. And so it really comes down to whose name do I recognize, and people recognize Pixar.
I think when they get nominated, people watch them because they have those festivals where they show all of them in succession. But yeah,
I will say, pretty disappointed. There's no snail or whale. And there is a thing to where I make a bit and then I'm upset that my bit.
Are there no whales?
There's no whales or snails
in any of the other movies nominated. I feel like one I could see there being whales in, but maybe they're not. You guys saw it and I didn't, so I don't know.
I'm going to do a deep dive and I'm going to watch every movie until I see a whale.
That's fair.
No, there's snail and the whale, and it didn't make it. It has a great title. Best title of the year.
From a complete crapshoot title to a category we can talk about a little bit more. We got original screenplay, Trial of the Chicago 7, Promising Young Woman, Minari, Judas and the Black Messiah, Sound of Metal. So Mank gets bumped for Judas and the Black Messiah, that was the one. I did not have Judas. That's the one pick I did not have. Kind of a little surprising, maybe.
I think that's the hype, I think, of Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm pretty happy about it because I want that movie to see because I do think it's like pretty radical in its goals and politics, and that's unique for the Oscars, especially replacing something so classical as Mank. Of course, we probably all hope it would have been Trial that got next, but it's Aaron Sorkin.
I think if there's one thing,
there's
one thing to compliment, it's the screenplay from the movie. Really, I mean. I'm a little bummed for Jack.
Is what decided to end on that note.
Yeah, I guess you never know. It's hard to say. I am a little bummed for Jack Fincher, obviously, who's no longer with us. So that's this. Mank was his sort of magnum opus. It is, the movie about the screenwriter got all the nominations except for the screenplay. That's like an interesting sort of fact, I think. I'm a little surprised. I know it wasn't the odds-on favorite, but I thought Soul would get a nom here just because Pixar really cleans up in screenplay categories generally.
Yeah,
But Sound of Metal had the wave kind of coming in, and then Judas, it's proved to be much bigger than people realized. So it just seemed like the movies that were more fresh in people's minds won the day.
I'm actually not surprised Soul got missed, just because it feels like that was one of those things where it came out, and it was the big movie, so it got buzz. And I think over time we revert to the mean, which is that animated movies don't get nominated outside of animated and song.
No, I think Pixar has like 8 screenplay nominations.
I completely
They get nominated a lot.
Interesting. I will have to say the thing I'm most surprised is that Sound of Metal did not get bumped for Judas and the Black Messiah instead of Mank. I would have assumed that Mank would have stuck around. It seems like a more sturdy contender, and I thought Sound of Metal might have gotten bumped if one of those was going to get bumped.
It makes one of my favorite screenplays, honestly. I love the musicality and the rhythm of the dialogue and stuff. So it's like, kind of a bummer, but I'm not heartbroken about it necessarily. It's still a good crop of nominees.
It's also very much the best story. The whole Jack Fincher of it is like weirdly like
narrative.
How did that not make it in? Because that's like the one that you could really build a narrative around compared to some.
And there's other categories I think that it got nominated and that it's less deserving than the screenplay. So
it did seem to get like just kind of tossed into a lot of the technical categories.
It missed out on 2 big ones. I thought it would get. It still got 10. So what is predictions?
I had it predicted for 13, like a ridiculous number. Without feeling, well, it wasn't even that I was like that high in the movie or I thought they were going to love it that much. It just felt like it was going to consistently be the best picture one that got tossed into categories. Like you always kind of see, there's always one best picture one that just does really well in the tech categories and gets tossed into all of them. And it felt like Mank was going to be that this year.
I think what helps Sound of Metal in this category is that I think its main competition for vote stealing. It's another category, meaning that like one movie, the Academy this year has shown a love for these more emotionally driven or like very humane kind of filmmaking, and there's maybe Soul was its only competitor in this case of taking those fans to people that went to those kind of scripts, because the other 2 big competitors are in Nomadland or in the other category.
Hey, first ever Oscar nomination for Derek C. in France, who should have 2 or 3 by now.
Yeah, for screenplay specifically.
Yeah. Jump ahead. The flip side, adapted screenplay. which was a bizarre category. We got Nomadland, we got One Night in Miami, and we got The Father. And then Ma Rainey's Black Bottom kind of got bumped for Borat, at least in my predictions. And then I threw First Cow as the dart throw, hoping to wish it on there. And it didn't get nominated. And then we got The White Tiger, which is, I guess, a movie.
That's one of the crazier. And this was more predicted. Like, there's a lot of people tagging it, but I still find this crazy. I've seen the movie.
Has anyone seen the movie?
It's also weird that Priyanka Chopra, who's in the movie, like announced the nomination. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy, but it is a weird. Like, she like got obviously super excited when that happened. I mean, I'm not honestly not shocked because Ramin Bahrani is like a pretty respected director who's like this is sort of his sort of celebration, his just due. I do think it kind of came a little out of nowhere. I feel like that's a movie that just I saw it showing up all of a sudden on odd sites, and I was a little confused why. I think there was a WGA. I think it was the first time where there was something, and it was like a bit of a red flag.
I think it was BAFTA.
The big one. Both. That's according to Koho. Yes, they both.
Yeah.
I will say not like I'm not like super intelligent and nuanced in my film analysis to fully understand all the issues, but I would say the adaptation might be some of its struggles and its flaws. Especially in use of voiceover and it's trying to encompass a lot in a smaller amount of time. That it thinks it has this epic scale, but it all feels minimalized.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, it's weird. A lot of the stuff that I thought was really interesting adaptation-wise this year just didn't make it. Again, I just think the First Cow adaptation is incredible. That would have been such a great way to at least tip your hat to the movie. It's like, one of the best movies of the year. It would have been nice. That's usually the one category screenplay where it's like...
And smartly adapted, it's the true definition of adapted.
I mean this happens a lot with those kinds of the great adaptations that sort of get overlooked for your Jokers and stuff.
You really do bring up a good point though, which is that screenplay is often the category where they reward the really good indie that's not big enough to get into the other awards, but they give it the screenplay as like the nod. And if you look at these categories, that movie doesn't exist here.
One Night in Miami, kind of, right? Because it didn't get a lot of love in any other.
I guess it's true.
No picture, no director, no actor.
It got supporting and nothing.
Yeah,
else.
You got the Leslie Odom and the song as well. But yeah, it's just one of those. I think that's the one movie that it's like this is what you get because it is such like it feels like it's such a talky movie.
And I think typically that would be Sound of Metal, but it just got a lot more notice. But that would have been like Sound of Metal gets in screenplay and nothing else as a normal.
It's a good point. I guess it kind of flipped the switch because we got so many more of these small indies getting like
and I wonder if the One Night in Miami thing is also partly like a tip of the hat to Kemp Powers for also writing Soul. So it's like, is that also potentially something acknowledging his work? Because he, two really acclaimed and beloved movies from 2020, he really only got mainly recognized for the one. Maybe that's his celebration.
There's interesting how we brought this up several times. There's like 3 or 4 people that are getting one nomination, but it does feel like it is encompassing several movies and several things from a year, like that they're using that as the flag bearer for the overall career.
This continues. News of the World just getting kind of shut out on a lot of the bigger categories.
I was actually surprised
to me. I always was very suspicious of the News of the World buzz.
Yeah, I don't know. Koho kept talking about how Greengrass is like this Oscar favorite, and he's been nominated for Best Director one time, and it was for United 97 or United 93. Sorry.
Yeah, because Kevin Phillips was like such a snubbed movie.
No Hanks. Like Hanks didn't get actor. Like that is pretty famously not. I feel like he's specifically not a favorite. So I wasn't shocked that his movie is the one that kind of got overlooked.
I was not surprised, mostly because that movie is not Tom Hanks doing anything that different from what Tom Hanks typically does, and Tom Hanks is great. But I think the problem Tom Hanks has with the Oscars is Tom Hanks does not change himself in a way that they tend to reward. He doesn't do the makeup. He doesn't do the I'm going to gain 50 pounds. He doesn't do I'm going to lose 100 pounds. He doesn't do any of that stuff that tends to get people nominations. He's just like, I'm Tom Hanks. I'm very good. I'm going to show up and do it in all my movies. But there's nothing different from his performances.
Know what movie you saw, but I'm pretty sure he had a pretty shaggy beard that he did not have in Forrest Gump.
I actually haven't seen it yet. So I do want to watch it. So
heavy spoiler. It's in Lucas's top 10, but we are big fans of this.
Wow. I mean, okay, I can't be shocked by that. It's such a dad. It's such a dad.
It's a really good movie though. Because I always want to say that because I feel like when we do these Oscar shows, we're talking so negative about News of the World, but that's purely just in the Oscars perspective. We both are
Yeah, I mean, this brings up a good point, which is just like when we're doing these shows, we're talking about what we think is going to get nominated. This is not we get to pick our favorite 10. Like,
there's some bias.
There's some, but also we're trying to think the way the Academy thinks, so that we can help predict the awards.
Yeah. I will say, I think last episode you guys said that the father was a weird one. Again, this is another thing of what I've heard, but I've heard that like one of the parts that makes it good is the way that it sort of adapts some of the harder to translate stuff from the play into the movie version. So like that, I feel like was kind of a guarantee.
Yeah, I actually, since we did that last night, I did a little bit more research, and I had heard the same things, which is just like it is in some ways a more interesting play adaptation than One Night in Miami or Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That it was maybe doing more to make it different from the stage.
It sounds like it feels more like a movie because the other ones feel like plays. I think
Ma Rainey feels like a play. It feels very much like a play.
This is what I was trying to say yesterday, I think, just poorly, and why I picked it and editing the other two didn't, because I heard that it did have a little more of like an abstraction to make it. Like, I think the editing is part of what makes it work, as far as I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Category though, Borat, obviously a nice surprise, but it's, there's a whole thing about it's how much of it is scripted or whatever. I don't know. That is what it is. I think they write the setups. That stuff's interesting enough. Like, I don't have an issue with it being nominated.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's a hot movie. It never really left the consciousness. People keep talking about it.
People love. Who would have guessed Sacha Baron Cohen, Oscar's favorite? People love him in the Academy. Such a weird.
Just this year. I mean, he's always been kind of.
Borat got nominated for best screenplay, the original one.
It's true. Did he get a nomination for Les Mis? Mike blanking? No. I feel like he might have been in contention for that. I don't think he's necessarily good in that movie, but I feel like
nominated for actor.
Until this very moment, I forgot he was in that movie. 100,000% forgot he was in that movie.
I honestly confuse it with Hugo because he's doing like the same character.
He's much nicer than Hugo, I feel like.
I thought you said Bruno for a second, and I was like, that's not the same thing. Anyway. That's adapted screenplay.
All right, moving on. Live action short.
Don't care. Next.
The nominees.
No, this is the biggest shocker of the whole thing for me, I think.
The Letter Room, The Present, Two Distant Strangers, White Eye, and Feeling Through. For my picks, The Human Voice and Dai both got
crazy. Human Voice not getting it is crazy.
Yeah, it's in theaters. They're playing. This is like the only short to like play in theaters.
It's got an Academy favorite actress who has won an Oscar starring. It's got an Oscar favorite director who has gotten a couple of surprising nominations, and like it's a very respected. It debuted at New York Film Festival. It was this big thing, and it's just crazy that it just got totally shut out. It's just
adapted of a respected play or a story or something too.
Yeah, it's like short story, I think.
Yeah.
Weird, super weird.
That's one of those ones you feel like should have been a lock.
Yeah.
Should have been one that you're just like, you just write it down and it's good. Not
that I don't know much about the voting of the voting of live action short. How many people even saw whatever? Maybe people just didn't recognize the names of the titles of the movies, and they just I don't know. It's all speculation, I guess.
Or you wonder if maybe being a name hurts you because they want to give the award to people who are up and comer new people, and they're like, oh, we've already given
Oscar Isaac,
fair, but maybe you look at Pedro and you're like, yeah, we've given you awards before, let's give somebody new. I don't know. I feel or it's just people don't care about live action short and are just not voting or checking boxes.
I mean, this is way tinfoil hat, but I almost wonder maybe they figure if they just give all the famous people nominations that directors feel like, oh, I could just win an easy Oscar. I'll just make a short and then submit it for the Oscars. And just
want that. I would love big directors. I've said before, I don't watch enough shorts, but I want the short thing to kind of rise as a form. I want big directors to do 20-minute, 30-minute things. It sounds great.
As long as they're not music videos starring Alicia Vikander, then I'm all for it.
I will destroy you.
You may destroy me.
I'm honestly, this is the first time we were talking about it's not I'm Easy to Find because that's the name of the album. I'm thinking of the name of the short. The national short based with Alicia Vikander, directed by
Anima is the PTA one, right? That's not the Mike Mills one.
Yeah, that's the Radiohead one. It doesn't matter. But my point is, this is the first time today that I've just had to realize that didn't get nominated for short and probably would have qualified and got real mad 2 years later. I was mad about this.
The name of this movie is called.
It is I Am Easy to Find because that's the name of the album. So I didn't know.
The title was not easy to find in Zach's memory, but nonetheless.
No, I said the title. I just didn't think that was the title of the short. Mike Mills' best film. Everybody should watch it. It's on YouTube. It's 20 minutes.
Okay, we're moving on. No, I'm not engaging with that.
I will not allow this beginners in 20th century woman slander on this podcast.
Neither of you have watched it. You haven't even listened to Boxer by the Nationals. So I don't want to hear it.
I've definitely heard that album, but anyway.
No, Lucas hasn't.
That was a dig at me. Jumping ahead, production design. We got Mank, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, The Father, which knocked out my pick of Mulan, and then Tenet, and then News of the World, which knocked out my pick of Emma. Interesting choices.
Yeah. I'm getting more interested in The Father. Keep bringing it up because I
guess not.
I'm excited to see it tomorrow.
I guess not really, because the two movies that got knocked out and
are the kind of interesting ones, right? Where it would have been like, oh, it's interesting. Mulan's getting like a production design thing, but it didn't get nominated. I'm a little bummed about Emma, like just like sort of the way they designed the places and the rooms and the locales. Like that stuff's cool, but I mean, I'm so Tenet got in all the Tenet nominations. I'm here to support that. Mank is probably going to win. It's got great, recreation of sort of, late 30s, early 40s era Hollywood. That stuff's great. I don't think that the Ma Rainey production design is that amazing. Did they build that city block from like, is that built or is that on location? If that's built, then that's maybe different. But like the studio to me is like not a super interesting produced sort of space. So it is what it is.
I feel like it's getting credit for there's like a real lighting thing going on that makes it, I think, stand out more than the design does. And maybe it's getting credit for that.
What about The Father? Is this just like we like this movie, let's throw it in this random category? Or do you think that actually has an impressive production?
From the way I've heard it described, this seems like this is one of the parts that's kind of interesting. The way that the play is structured, the way that it's performed too, is like a weird rooms changing thing. So I mean, again, this is all baseless speculation. We come back in a week having seen it, and it's like, totally wrong.
I'm going to tap on 5 minutes extra at the end of this podcast, talking about The Father after I see it.
After you've seen it,
if everything we said was complete bullshit, I will say it.
You're gonna edit. You won't even hear what we just said. You'll voice over the top of this. It'll cover all of it.
Yeah. It does on surface look like they took two lesser regarded films that might have been more interesting and replaced them with more frontrunner, more overall approval films.
Which one is the second one that you think they put in there that's surprising?
Well, the two that I did not have predicted were The Father and News of the World.
Well, News of the World is like, to me, that makes sense. It's like that style of Western sort of like period piece stuff is like tends to be like the production design is often acknowledged with that category.
That's true. I just didn't have it. I had Mulan and Emma, and then those two came in. And that to me just looks like the kind of the classic of like Emma and Mulan are not as well regarded. The Father and News of the World are. They kind of just swatch them out. Even though they totally might be deserving, it just on surface looks like we picked the bigger front runners over like the lesser.
It's just in the News of the World is in the legacy of something like The Revenant, 1917, like those kinds, even Anna Karenina, where it's like this historical sort of, capturing this period of time with the environments and stuff. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it's certainly not. It's not that.
They made The Sandstorm from scratch. No, that's not
the song by Darude. Zack has no idea what that is. Probably.
I think I do.
That's costume design. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, Emma, Mulan, which is I threw a sleeper pick of The Personal History of David Copperfield because I thought they might go for another costume drama.
I thought there was no way it was going to be that movie, but what they picked is crazy.
To be fair, when I came to this category, I had 4 clear ones, and the 5th one was a total crapshoot for me. And I said Personal History of David Copperfield, and it turned out to be Pinocchio, which is a random Roberto Benigni film.
A movie that literally like existed 20 years ago and also doesn't exist at all. Is like a total ghost movie that I like. It's who knew this movie was even happening? Like this is like a total random. It's got multiple nominations. It's like this is insane. It makes no sense. My wildcard pick was Ammonite. I thought they would, sort of tip the hat to that movie for the costumes and the sort of slight period stuff. But, they went Pinocchio, which, it's got the sort of classic costume stuff that they like, I think, a lot of times. But it is strange.
I'm so confused about Pinocchio. I think we need to do an episode about Pinocchio without watching it, just discussing how this movie exists. Like, it's not the same movie? Did he just, like, want a second hit at it? Like, he's like,
Well, I think he plays Pinocchio in the 2000 one. I think he plays Geppetto in this one. I want to say Roberto Benigni.
I believe that is correct.
Is this like basically if I was a filmmaker, like I would be on my 4th Peter Pan by now?
Yeah, but you'd be playing Captain Hook, and then the next time you play Tinkerbell, and then that's what it feels.
And one time I'm like the kid in the raccoon costume.
Yeah,
that's the first one.
I remember hearing about this like several years ago when it was announced, and it was one of these things where it's just like, okay, I guess he's doing that, and it was never a movie that anyone seemed that interested in. It felt totally like Roberto Benigni wanted to make this movie. No one else cared, and Roberto Benigni was like, "I'm going to do it anyway," and it just happened to get Oscar.
This reminds me of. Do you guys remember when that Madonna movie W.E. got a costume design nomination, and like that movie literally does not exist like at all? That's like that is. I could have just made that up in a lot of people's minds, but that's what this reminds me a lot of. It's like this is a movie, I guess. Sure, costume design, cool.
Okay, so now I think I need a meeting of the brain trust. Should I watch Pinocchio? Like, if anyone's gonna like it, like I'm gonna be into it, right?
You probably would like it. Yeah. Although I would like to make I'm gonna make a ridiculous bold statement that I have no facts to back up, which is that people picked this movie for costumes without seeing it. They just saw some pictures and then they just checked the box.
Yeah, I'm bummed that Jingle Jangle didn't get, because I think those costumes are really delightful and interesting, but it didn't. It's one of those movies that just didn't get any traction in any way.
Yeah, it really.
I think it kind of got thrown off as this like disposable Netflix kids movies, not like the one the serious Netflix ones. Just
yeah.
To All the Boys You Love's never gonna get nomination, right? Same kind of.
It should have best adapted screenplay. Jenny Han, the adaptation of Jenny Han's work is chef's kiss.
Let's go to the absolute I think the craziest category out of the entire nominations. Documentary feature, Time and Collective. Yep, we got those. I missed the other 3. I had Welcome to Chechnya, Dick Johnson is Dead, and Boy State. They went with Crip Camp, which sort of makes sense. We kind of called this a little bit. We said Obama's, that might slip in. The Mole Agent, which I've never heard of. And the one that it came out and I heard it and I was like, I'm not surprised, was The Octopus Teacher.
That movie sucks. Why did it get nominated? That was a bad movie.
Because it has the hook of, oh, it's an octopus, and like people were supposedly really emotional over it.
Yeah, the guy spends the whole movie basically indirectly expressing how he wants to have sex with this octopus. It's like so. It's God, that movie's so. I get the impulse. The movie itself, not.
So this is a one. Bad changes, right? On the whole, like bad snubs, like. Boy State should have been in this category.
I can't believe that Dick Johnson is Dead was even like supposed front runner. It's a way too interesting documentary in a lot of ways to get nominated.
No,
Time was the one interesting one that they could tip the hat to, but it's a little too arty. I don't think Camera Person was nominated back when it came out, was it? But
it was, I believe.
Yeah, well, that's a little surprising in that case then, because it's like the one thing, the Mole Agent. I just remember. A couple of critics have been stumping for that weirdly. Like I think Glenn Kenny from New York Times, and I know Eric Cohn is a big advocate of it. So like I've been sort of hearing about it a little bit, but it's
Camera Person did not.
Right. It got a bunch of other nominations, sort of like some of the other ones where it wins all the critics awards and then just completely gets blanked.
Now look at the Mole Agent. And I seen this poster and I've seen some, reviews of it. Had no idea this was a fucking documentary. This poster, I thought it was like a comedy, like a farce. I thought it was like a Pink Panther kind of thing.
Yeah, it really so confused.
It really does look like
even if you read it, a private investigator in Chile hires someone to work as a motor retirement home. This is a fictional film.
Do you wonder if
I need to see this movie now?
Do you wonder if Dick Johnson is Dead got bumped because they felt it was too much intentional stuff? It wasn't like sometimes documentaries go to the movie like Crip Camp, where it's just like an exploration of a thing you haven't seen before. Or
I think it's like art for art's sake. Documentaries tend to not be the ones that get acknowledged. If maybe they'll get a nomination, they definitely don't tend to win. I think it definitely is like more issues, dramas, stuff that's like very specific, hones in on. This is an idea. It's easily sellable. This is what the movie's about. It's going to teach you something. Whereas I think Dick Johnson is like a little too reflective. It's a little too sort of about the filmmaker experience. And Boy State, I don't know exactly. I mean, maybe people were just not trying to talk about politics or something. I don't know. Like they didn't want to acknowledge that sort of the idea of what the movie's about. Maybe it's a studio lacking a push thing. I don't know.
I've seen a couple takes on this, which is one was Apple TV Plus is the thing that people don't watch.
That's a horrible thing because the Greyhound got a nomination. So that
but Greyhound has Tom Hanks in it.
Greyhound's a movie nobody watched. People actually watched.
But they don't.
I think a lot of voters just like. Yep.
They don't have to watch it necessarily because it's Tom
movie.
Hanks in a war movie, and we have a history with that.
I think, but they know it exists. It's on Apple TV. I think Boy State had a lot more talk about it, so I don't have any ground on that.
I also saw a take, which was that it was too like hip and young for the Oscars, and was too like it wasn't Oscar-y in the construction.
I think people hate teenage boys, and we're coming to terms with
especially teenage boys in Texas.
I do wonder if that movie doesn't get nominated because at the end of it, you're like we already felt bad about politics in 2020, and then you watched Boy State, and you were like, oh great, the next generation isn't any better off, and like. I maybe that's like not the spirit of what somebody wants.
Maybe
to
the
watch.
votes were against our guy Ben and not for the other movies, you know.
Yeah, just to get back to Dick Johnson's dad losing his spot again too, is I did kind of get my hopes up with the change in the way the documentary categories go with My Gap. I thought there was becoming space for these emotionally driven documentaries, these more personal ones, and so it just didn't work out for Dick Johnson. But those are the ones that notoriously struggle.
Yep.
So.
Really weird category, but weirdly not surprising.
Oh, get snubbed too, or am I making this up? That's another one in the same, these personal, emotional stories.
Did what?
Stories We Tell is another one, big one in that line that got snubbed. Stories We Tell was one of the biggest documentaries of that year, 2012. It's a very personal, emotional story. They don't go for those.
Yeah. Did No Home Movie get nominated?
I don't.
In 2015, I don't think it did either. That's the Chantal Akerman's final film about like her mother and stuff. Yeah, that's a very similar thing.
Yeah, I don't think that one. Yeah, did not. Yeah, it's a weird category. I feel like it is so. Like you looked at them and you're like, this is bad, and then you were like, I also should not be surprised that this is bad. Yeah,
that's fair.
Let's jump ahead.
It's not a horrible category. Hopefully, time wins. That's my big thing. Hopefully, it fucking Octave Seizures not horrible, but it's time,
please.
I'm not going in. I don't like the movie. I'm in a very small minority.
I like Crip Camp enough.
I haven't seen it. I know it's got the Obama push, so we'll see.
Is Collective maybe? Is Time the front runner? Are we sure the Time's the front runner?
No, I mean,
I think Collective could push.
I think that with documentary, you don't really know. I think that's the truth of.
There's been times like the fifth best odds is one documentary.
I don't know. I feel like in recent years there's been a big front runner. Like what was the doping movie? Why am I blanking? Icarus. That was a clear front runner.
Wait, that just had the name. Like the other ones, just like nobody knew what the hell they were.
Fair. But then like OJ was a big clear front runner.
That's like bigger than the Oscars. That's like
that was true.
Also, let's not bring this. You can't nominate
show.
Small acts, but you can bring in fucking OJ. Don't give me this.
I mean, they released it in theaters as that they qualified under the rules. We can argue about the rules, but that's
8 hours long. It's an unfair comparison.
I mean, it's not the longest documentary, so there's at least an.
It's also weird because it's like acted and stuff. It's interesting. Experience.
There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. Let's jump ahead. Documentary short. A love song for Latasha. Colette. Yay! Facebook has a nomination. And Hunger Ward were the ones I had, and then Concerto was a conversation, and Do Not Split bumped Abortion Helpline. This is Lisa and the Speed Cubers for me. So, I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot category to begin with. I'm actually kind of surprised about Abortion Helpline. Feels like a topic that would get nominated for a short film.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's very much in line with what has been nominated recently.
I wish I had a take. Make short films more accessible.
I've seen Love Song for Latasha. That's the only one of these I've seen. It's really good. I think it's the favorite right now.
It's the favorite.
Hopefully it wins. And I haven't seen other ones. I tend to watch a lot of the shorts. as it comes closer. Hopefully they're available in some kind of package, right? Because I usually go and see them in theaters when they show them all together. We'll see.
I want every movie in theaters to play with a short in front of it, and this is my.
I agree.
And I'm moving forward.
I agree.
All right, let's talk about a category we have some more takes on. Best Supporting Actress: Olivia Colman, the father; Yoo Jung-young for Minari; Maria Bakalova, Borat's subsequent movie film; Amanda Seyfried Mank, and then I predicted Jodie Foster of The Mauritanian, and we got Glenn Close for Hillbilly Elegy. And in some ways, those performances feel very much in the same vein, and they just went a different direction than I predicted.
Really? Have you seen The Mauritanian?
No.
I don't think of it as the same.
No. I'm not saying not as the same performance. I'm saying established Hollywood actress does movie. That purely on that level.
Big difference. Jodie Foster, 2-time winner. Glenn Close, 0-time winner. So I think
which is honestly,
and it's been in talks for like all decade. They've been trying to get her in. Jodie Foster's in and out.
Yeah,
I made the miscalculation, assuming that they were going to give The Mauritanian something, and they were going to give it her as most likely option.
I thought they could get 2 acting nominations, and it got nothing.
I thought there could be a chance for 2. I thought she was the most likely, and I thought that Hillbilly Elegy was going to get a technical, but not this one, and I just happened to be wrong.
I'm so upset that we had to say the phrase Hillbilly Elegy related to the Oscars now. That's my main disappointment.
Honestly,
I haven't seen it. To be honest, I haven't seen it. I think the novel's horrible. I probably won't even watch it. Part of me is like, should I watch it just so I can feel righteous ripping on it? I'm like, I don't know. I got better ways to spend my time.
I'm mostly mad at the nomination for now making me feel like bad when I tell people I'm never going to watch it, but I'm still never going to watch it. If it like the Mauritanian, at least like that movie goes back into not existing, and so it's okay if I don't watch it.
So I have seen it. I'm glad it's Close and not Adams, because I think Adams is genuinely terrible in the film. My take is that Close got nominated for a Razzie and an Oscar, and she deserves neither. That it's a fine performance.
I don't want to give the Razzies my
that's
space.
Fair.
That's the.
I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, more than anything, this performance is not at either end of the spectrum. It exists somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's whatever.
As far as the rest of them, I mean, it's Bakalova. I was a little nervous coming up. I was like, is she going to get the nomination? Is she not? Glad that she was able to. Olivia Colman was a lock. It feels like Seyfried is sort of sliding. I do think that Bakalova's got a decent chance to win. I think Yu Jung has a decent shot as well, but we'll
Coleman
see.
Could win, but the father
is this
love and her love. All I heard is that she's like not that big of a part in the movie, and that she's kind of building up the father love / people just like watching Olivia Colman, and she's just a great name.
I'm worried that Glenn Close is going to win.
I don't think so.
There's no chance.
I don't think so. I really don't.
I disagree. I think this is Coleman. I think this is Close versus Bakalova.
I
think Siegfried is falling off the map. I think.
Which sucks. She's so. I mean, I know Lucas said some things about her performance in the last episode.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't.
I think she's so good in that movie. She's so much better than Gary Oldman in the movie.
Great. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not stumping for Gary Oldman either. Just so
same argument that I'm kind of going to use for Andre Day later is I think it's very, very rare that someone wins for movies that most people don't like. Just like Iron Lady's like the only like one I can even think of for winning a big actor award for a movie that largely is negative reviews, like heavily negative reviews.
I don't think the Iron Lady has that heavily negative reviews.
Yes, that's even my point, right? Even that saying that as the one example is still better thought of and liked than Hillbilly Elegy. No one loves that movie. There's no way she wins because of that.
But there is a history with the Oscars of people who are overdue for their award in the eyes of the Oscars being given it for a really bad performance.
For her winning for the past decade, and it has came out false every time. So that is a false narrative.
But he
has a point.
But there's also
how many times do we have to say they're going to give it to Glenn Close because she hasn't won it before we just give up on that fucking argument? I'm saying the F word. That's all.
Wow, Zach, you okay, buddy?
I will say they give actress awards to bad movies, but not always poorly received movies. I think.
Yeah, like Renee Zellweger got it for a dumbass movie, but it's not because she was, needing one. Because I think the same arguments could be used for Carrie. They will also throw this argument like Carrie Mulligan's, deserving, even though she's like 36. But I think people still see it as her time doing too. It's like that argument is loose. They could be saying like it's Amanda Seyfried's time, and they're going to give it to her.
It's definitely not Amanda Seyfried's time.
It's just thrown out there as a.
She is the 5 in that category, and I think it's pretty clearly she's the 5 in that category. Like I think honestly, she's lucky she didn't get bumped. Like she's lucky to be in.
I don't know about this talking down on her. You're lucky, kiddo. Like
I'm not saying it to her. I'm saying it in terms of like the general word. Like I am somewhat surprised she did not get bumped. Like she did. She seems to be heading
for who? Foster?
For Foster or for somebody else. Like I feel like there's just like that performance just seems to be heading downward. Like the hype is not behind that performance.
But I feel like we all said that like about Mank and that stuff yesterday, and then Mank ends up at 10.
Dude, I gave it 13 nominations. It missed 3. I think Mank is well received. I just think Siegfried for some reason seems to be for some reason is lagging behind the rest of the movie in the other category.
I think she's also gonna get the heat from like I think there's a Mank backlash that's already started. That's like, how the hell did this get so many nominations? That I think is gonna kind of sink it. So,
and the answer to the question is how do you get so many nominations? Is it did well in technical categories, and those movies always get a lot of nominations. If you're a movie that gets a couple high end and a bunch of technicals, you get a bunch of nominations. It's just kind of math.
I will say Yu Jung. I thought the same thing was going to happen that happened to Zhao Zhen last year. Luckily, it did not. Where the older Asian actress is sort of like, she's going to make it, and then all of a sudden is not there. Glad that it did happen. Super happy for her. She's amazing in the movie. It's great.
Definitely have a stronger movie behind her.
Came out this year. Farewell would be doing so well. That's all I'm thinking about.
Minari's also
would definitely be nominated.
Yeah.
Minari coming into the Oscars was also just in a better position than the Farewell was, which I think definitely helps her get into this category.
Even though she's like in the Farewell, I think Zhao Zhen is a bigger thing in the movie. Like she's like much more like that's the standout thing for a lot of people, I think, whereas not as much the case for Yao Yuzheng. So just cool that she got nominated still.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do best sound. We got Sound of Metal, Mank, Soul, News of the World, and then my prediction of Tenet and Ludwig Göransson, who's kind of a super hot composer, got bumped.
Sound.
For Greyhound. Oh, I said sound. Sorry, I was talking about Ludwig Göransson. I'm an idiot. No, but okay. Yes. Greyhound, essentially a much larger movie, got bumped for a much smaller one.
Yeah, I don't know. Because the sound's all I could focus on movie because I had no idea what was happening. I was like, bang, there's a bang, there's a boom. Sure, give it to Greyhound.
Just a random nomination that just feels like they saw Tom Hanks in a war movie.
I mean, I think it makes sense because I really do think that a lot of people thought the mixing was really bad in Tenet. So like, I'm not surprised it didn't get nominated. I think that was a big complaint. And I feel like that people are like, that was actually bad. Like I would specifically go out of my way to vote for something else. And Greyhound, and it's hilarious. I mean, Sound of Metal, as soon as it was titled Sound of Metal, even if it wasn't a big thing, it probably was going to get the nomination anyway, right? It's like way too perfect. It's the movie about the guy who's going deaf. So it was always going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny thing is when we were doing the predictions, I thought Tenet wasn't going to get bumped because this has been a constant complaint at Nolan. And for some reason, his movie's still going to
not in this way. Like people think this movie is unintelligible.
Yeah, but I feel like Nolan has always been plagued by questions about his sound mixing and his ability to make movies that are understandable.
I think it's just Bane. And
there was definitely criticism of the characters in Dunkirk, especially the pilots.
Anything with the mask,
Batman voices. He was
just ahead of the curve. He knew about masks. Nolan was setting the groundwork for us as a society. We should just, we should all be so lucky.
Bane is a good American, and he wears his mask, and he keeps himself and others safe.
Yeah, and he fights.
He's not an American at all, but sure.
I don't know if does he have a nationality in that film?
Yeah, they're from the Baneland.
He takes down Wall Street. He's fighting the good fight.
The Baneland.
No, that's Christine Baranski. That's fighting the good fight.
I would like a Baneland movie.
I was expecting a Wall Street joke, but I'm okay with the good fight joke.
And that's. I mean, I don't know if we have much else to say honestly about the category.
Yeah.
I think it's good for most people that they consolidated it. I still disagree that it's hard to tell the difference.
I feel like I just started to understand it. They did like one montage, or not montage, but during the Oscars, they did one like explanation video. I was like, I get it.
It's so simple. Editing is original sound created for the movie. Mixing is how you manage the sounds against each other. To me, very straightforward. But
it is definitely funny that they pushed them together like a couple years after they started really.
And Sound of Metal could have won 2 Oscars. It would have been guaranteed to win 2 Oscars, which is kind of a bummer that it's only going to probably win at least the one now.
Yeah, it is interesting. Because they finally pushed them together after a couple years after like trying to begin a push to explain the difference between the two of them. Like I feel like that really started pushing a couple years ago. They started trying to be like, you listen to the podcast and people be talking about the Oscars, like let's explain what these 2 categories are different, and then they're just like, yeah, we're just showing it.
It's kind of clear in the titles. Like, if you know what the word mix means.
I think mixing makes sense. Editing was the one I think that people were confused by. Cinematography. We got Nomadland, Mank, and News of the World. And then I had Tenet and Minari, and they put in Judas and the Black Messiah and Trial of the Chicago 7. Trial of the Chicago 7. Is that a good-looking movie?
No. It's very basic.
I think the one scene where oh my god, Bobby Seale is like, I think that is the one really well shot scene of the movie where it's doing interesting camera stuff as far as lighting and composition, but outside of that, it's like very straightforward.
Yeah, lighting's pretty bad. I think the
courtroom like in the courtroom
way too bright. I think the comedy scenes look way too dark. I think there's no middle ground.
Well, the good thing is the only flaw in the movie Trial of Chicago 7, it is a flawless movie. Otherwise, has no other issues, and it's just perfect. So if this is the price we have to pay for perfection getting acknowledged, then that's great. But no, I mean, yeah, bummer. Obviously, no Tenet. Tenet's wonderfully shot movie, but
that's the most frustrating thing about it is that Trial of Chicago 7, a very meh movie, visually gets in over Minari, which I haven't seen, but looks visually like they like kind of that naturalistic look. And then Tenet is obviously just way more interesting and impressive visually than something like Trial of Chicago 7.
I mean, I will say Sean Bond, who shot Judas, I don't think that movie is amazingly shot, but it's great that he finally got acknowledged. Steve McQueen's longtime cinematographer. It's cool that he got his work kind of put out there in the world. The rest of them are sort of the obvious picks. Joshua James Richards for Nomadland, and but yeah,
I kind of had my hopes, which is Defy of Bloods, but I know some people have problems with the digital quality of that Netflix kind of look I don't agree with, but that was the one that I was hoping would get in.
I will admit, I rewatched it recently, and when the old guys are trying to play young, it is a little bit disconcerting and doesn't always work.
Is that not a makeup thing though?
What does it have to do with cinematography?
I also don't love the aspect ratio when they do to differentiate.
That's great. To me, it's a great, clean, simple. I love a visual marker that's just like we're in a different time. Boom! That you don't have to like spend time trying to figure it out. I really appreciate that personally.
Fair. Anything else in cinematography, or is this kind of like we don't love the things they added? But
rooting for Joshua James Richards really for Nomadland, but other than that, decent nominees. None of these. I mean, Trial I don't think is amazing looking, but it's not like. There's been worse nominees in cinematography in the past, so I'll live.
Yep. Film editing. We got Trial of Chicago 7, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, and then I had Mank and Tenet, and they put in The Father and Sound of Metal, which again, kind of like I guess Sound of Metal had more juice than we thought it did.
Yeah.
And then I guess Mank is kind of the big one that gets knocked out. The Father must do something interesting. Again, we haven't seen it, so we can't.
Yeah, I do think that the Mank thing is a little surprising. I think that's a bit of a bellwether as far as how the movie's going to perform as far as actually winning technical awards, because I think editing really goes hand in hand with how much people respect the movie overall. Because for a long time, it was a big Best Picture indicator, not as much in the last few years, but I think like the strength of the movie as a whole is reflected a bit in this nomination. So that's why I think The Father and Sound of Metal makes sense that they both got picture and editing. It makes sense they'd get them together. I figured if they got one, they'd get the other. If not, they would miss out on both. So I think it sounds about right for me. The Trial editing I think is like bad and distracting, and it's like like the Adam McKay editing that I'm like, I just don't enjoy what this is doing. This is like doing too much. It's like the I, Tonya thing as well. I'm just like, this is not the kind of editing that I want in my movie.
It's disorienting in an unhelpful way.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously, there's the documentary footage splice stuff, but I don't think that's done very well. So, it seems like it's the favorite. Hopefully, it loses out to something, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't like the way they splice the acting and the documentary stuff together. That really doesn't work for me in Trial of Chicago 7. I think it's disconcerting.
Would be Nomadland, and if Nomadland starts to carry some things away, because and Koho is on here talking shit about Nomadland. And I don't really want to give credit to that because I think it is so gracefully strung.
It's basically the editing in the movie is like it builds a ramp, fluid. And the movie just keeps going and never stops. It's like it's an ebb and flow through the entire, or more, it's a straight flow through the entire movie, and you don't feel this like jagged. It just feels like a journey, an odyssey that it's wonderfully paced and edited, and I think the strength of the movie overall will carry it in this category. I think that if it wins editing, I think that's a really, it's probably already the favorite, but I think that's a really good indicator for Best Picture if it wins editing.
Yeah, but it's a key to the movie.
If something upsets it in editing, does that maybe give an indication that Nomadland is not as strong?
No.
Trial is the favorite. I think if something like Sound of Metal sneaks in there,
if Promising a Woman bumps it, does that necessarily say anything about Best Picture?
Yeah. It says honestly, even though I
just don't expect that to happen. That would be
forgot. Crazy. I think that editing is a little too kind of hip and like pop to win at Best Editing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's an interesting thing you see in this category sometimes is that Nomadland feels more naturalistic editing, like editing that you don't see, and Trial of Chicago 7 is editing you are supposed to see.
It's most editing instead of best editing, which
a lot of times.
Bohemian Rhapsody. There we go.
The Adam McKay trial, the Adam McKay problem where it's like you can see the cuts or Bohemian Rhapsody, the one who's like you can see the 4,000.
Yeah, Lucas only loves movies where you can't see the cuts, like 1917, where you totally can't notice any of the breaks in any of the scenes.
I've never said you can't notice them. He literally gets knocked unconscious and jumps in a river. They're very clear.
I will say Adam McKay, I don't think it's won editing, but his movies have never won editing, by the way. He gets nominations, but he's never won.
No,
Koho last time was like, Adam McKay is won editing. It's like his movies have never won. Vice lost to Bo Rap, Big Short lost to Mad Max. So yeah, I don't think that style is like necessarily always the big winner. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think, examples of both styles winning in the past.
What won last year? Was it Parasite?
No, it was Ford v Ferrari.
Oh, okay.
McCusker and Buckland for Ford v Ferrari. Yeah,
that feels like a lot of editing.
It's also good editing. I think it's like good structure. And
I also love that movie. I'm a big fan.
It helps with the frenetic energy of the car. It's a lot of editing with a purpose. Like that is the energy.
It does really help with the stop and start of the car and like the
McCusker's also like an Oscar favorite. He won for Walk the Line. Like he's a guy that's really respected in editing circles. I think that's part of it too. So,
all right. Let's jump ahead to visual effects, which is a weird category because we don't have the traditional blockbusters to throw in here.
Yeah.
So we got Tenet, The Midnight Sky, Mulan, and the one and only Ivan. I had those four. And said Mank was going to get in, and they instead put something called Love and Monsters.
It's good. I predicted this. It's got wonderful visual effects. I would recommend. This is a super fun, fantasy creature romp with Dylan O'Brien. To me, it's a total classic, like, the fun pick where it's like they got the cool monster designs and it's all like this creative sort of from scratch stuff. I appreciate the nomination for this. This has got to be the category that's like the worst like consensus as far as the movies themselves go. I feel like these movies are like not respected. Like the most well-liked movies, maybe Tenet in here, and even that is like people are kind of up and down on. Like the rest of the movies are like kind of like yeah.
So Tenet's gonna walk away with it, right? Because
I think so. That would be my guess. I would. Yeah, I would.
That's what the movie is built around.
Well, I think it's also just the highest. It's the highest profile movie of those movies.
It's the most.
I will say Gravity, Interstellar, and First Man. The space legacy is strong. Midnight Sky has a chance, I think.
It's but have you seen Midnight Sky?
I've not.
Okay, they don't actually use the effects that much. It's much more grounded than the effects on.
That's the stuff that they like to.
I also acknowledge. There's a long history in this category of they don't take the big blockbuster pick. They take the slightly smaller indie pick. If you look at previous years, a lot of people thought it was going to be a lot of Avengers.
They don't have that this year, though.
No, but I wonder if Tenet gets forced into that position, and then people take the roundabout and pick something smaller. Maybe. To be fair, there's not necessarily. That's why I actually thought Mank was getting in, because I thought Mank might have a chance to win if it got in, purely on being it was the actual prestige picture among a bunch of movies that like people were like, that's a random kids movie for Disney Plus. Like that's not. I'm not going to vote for that.
Yeah, I will say I believe that Tenet, the special effects supervisor, one of the guys is the guy who also did Fury Road and Dunkirk. So like, I think Andrew Jackson is his name. So I think that that's one to look out for as far as an Academy kind of favorite.
Fair. Makeup and hairstyle. So we got Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Hillbilly Elegy, Emma, and Mank. And I had Birds of Prey in there because I thought it would follow the legacy of Suicide Squad. And instead they picked Pinocchio.
Hey, guess what? I have exciting updates. While you were talking, I'm being a bad podcaster, not fully listening. I put Pinocchio now on my watch list. It's going to happen.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm not watching this movie. I already watched Wendy, and I will not watch Pinocchio.
I think this is an okay category. Again, I haven't seen Pinocchio, so I don't know if it's there. I'm bummed that Birds of Prey didn't get in because I think the hairstyling in Birds of Prey is really well done. Like I think that especially someone like Black Canary, the way they do her hair is really, really good and really interesting. I think it's crazy. I believe that the woman who did Ma Rainey is like the first Black hairstylist to ever be nominated for an Oscar, which is like insane.
Although not that surprising, if we're being honest.
No, for sure. But like that is just crazy to think about. And that tells you something about the way that Black actors' hair and stuff is styled in Hollywood and the way they're lit and all that kind of stuff.
I've seen articles about this where I think it was maybe I saw a Viola Davis interview. She talked about this where she was like, it's really weird in Hollywood because you're a person whose skin doesn't fit the typical makeup tones and whose hair doesn't fit the typical hairstyles being worked on by white people who are used to working on white people. Yeah, and it's a completely different process to do basically anything.
Yeah. I think to me, I hope this is Emma. I think the hairstyling is really fun and the makeup's really cool, but I feel like it's going to be Hillbilly Elegy or Ma Rainey. So
I think it's going to be Ma Rainey.
Hillbilly looks bad. I don't know how to see it, but I think.
But it's most makeup. But it's
most
makeup. It's all.
Close's makeup is really. It's hard to get through. Like it is too much at times. But you're right. This does end up being the. It's got the supporting actress nominee in a bunch of makeup in a movie that's nominated for makeup.
I mean, just think of three of the last four winners: Bombshell, Vice, Darkest Hour. Those movies all have the weird face morphing thing that's changing someone's face. Even Mad Max has a Morton Joe.
And they have makeup and hairstyling on people who got acting nominations or enter themselves in the spotlight.
Yeah. This is a category that feels like it's always just makeup. It feels like hairstyling is like a total afterthought.
I'm going to hope that Ma Rainey, not the full transformation, but there's still like a real look going on with Viola Davis.
Oh, yeah.
That maybe that will help take it across.
I'm just worried about Hillbilly Elegy.
Yeah, I agree. I would like Emma to win because it's a very fun movie and it does some cool stuff. International feature film.
Another weird category.
Well, I had another round. Vivadas, Ada, and Collective, and then Two of Us and La Llorona. I actually was worried about La Llorona to get bumped out because of the horror aspect of the movie, and we got Better Days and The Man Who Sold His Skin. I don't not believe we're front runners at all.
I have no idea what those are.
I don't think
Better Days I have seen actually, but I have not seen the other one.
I think Better Days was relatively in play. The Man Who Sold His Skin feels like a real outlier.
Yeah, it's pretty random. It's the first ever Tunisian film nominated, I believe, because I think, and Collective is the first Romanian film, which that's actually crazy considering Romanian's film history. That's kind of interesting stuff. I'm bummed that they ignored the horror movie. I'm not surprised by that, obviously, but to me, that's a huge bummer. And Night of the Kings, I would have liked to see acknowledged. I just don't think that had enough juice behind it from its distributor. And then Dear Comrades, which is by the director of Tango and Cash, which is kind of crazy. But that's a movie I sort of thought would sneak in there. So I only got 3 of the 5 right on this one. I meant to share this earlier. So my Gold Derby, I looked at it, and the stats from 2020 and 2021, 77.71 and 77.39. I'm off by like 0.4% on both years, like the exact same amount almost. So it's crazy how that worked out.
Interesting. I wonder if it's like you have the same blind spots every year where you miss the same couple of nominations in every
probably.
category.
am a little too hopeful in certain categories. But yeah, this is a somewhat interesting, I guess, category. I just think this has got to be another round. I think when you get a Best Director nomination, other really heavy hitters, I think you're pretty much on your way. Maybe Collective it's in other categories.
Kind of a weak international film year, maybe because the lack of Cannes. Oh my gosh, what am I pronouncing here? I think the lack of Cannes maybe hurt the international category a little bit, but it seems a little weak comparatively.
I think this is definitely another rounds category, unless Collective wins documentary, in which case maybe it's an outside shot, but I'd still bet on the movie they got.
Again, bummer for La Llorona, bummer for Night of the Kings, but sometimes those are the kinds of movies that tend to get ignored, like African cinema, not super acknowledged by the Academy, so not shocked about Night of the Kings.
Yeah. And another round is pretty great, so I'm happy with that winning. Let's jump to original score. We got Soul, Mank, Minari, News of the World. And I picked Tenet because of Ludwig Göransson, but they gave us Terrence Blanchard and the only nomination for Da 5 Bloods, which I'm not unhappy about, but I'm surprised that's the one. I guess I shouldn't be. I feel like that's something that sometimes happens to Spike's movies.
He got nominated for Black Klansman.
For Klansman, and half of the Klansman score is reused score from other movies. So it wasn't even like a big original piece. I mean, it's from him still, but it is interesting. I'm super bummed about Ludwig missing out, obviously, but stoked. Emile Mosseri, maybe my favorite working composer, finally getting nominated. Obviously, he's only been working for like 2 years, but he scored Last Black Man in San Francisco, one of my favorite film scores the last 10 years. And his score for Minari is wonderful. I'm thinking of this as sort of also a tip of the hat to his work in Kajillionaire, which is a great score. It's a great lineup. I feel like I could see. I feel like it's got to be one of the Reznor and Rosses. I would think probably Soul, because Soul's kind of swept every technical category. But let's see.
I'm really surprised that Göransson missed, because he feels like really hot as a director. He's done a lot of big work. He's done a lot of big TV work. He seems to be riding really high. Yeah, he's just kind of seems hot, and that I was kind of surprised he got bumped. But
yeah, I think this is probably gonna be pretty big for Emile Mosseri, similar to how like Mika Levy became such like a huge composer to get for like all the cool movies. I feel like he's going to get a lot of cool offers, and not like Tenet or these big ones, but I think a lot of the art house films that we love, we're going to see his name popping up a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. All right, jumping ahead. Original song, a category I nailed. Speak Now, One Night in Miami, Low C, The Life Ahead, Fight for You, Judas and the Black Messiah, Hear My Voice, Trials of Chicago 7, and the only one that matters, Husavik from Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga.
I mean, it's not Yaya Dig Dog, but we'll live.
I mean, I feel like this is a really boring category. This is what we thought the 5 that were the highest odds, and they kind of
honestly, I have no memory of them because they're in the fucking credits and they don't count. Get out of here.
I thought that Diane Warren would get nominated for Free from One and Only Ivan. That was sort of my big thought going into this. The song from Trial got nominated instead, which, it is what it is. I think it's going to be Speak Now. I kind of wish. Yeah, I wish it was something like Husavik, which again is like part of the movie. I do think that the song from Yossi is really good. So it's still.
I love Husavik, but mainly I want to win because it's the only one that's in the movie.
Yeah. It's a lot of credits
that plays into the story and
I mean, the problem with this category is that this year doesn't really have the movie with musical performances that you would
all that kind of classic.
There is no La La Land.
There's no big Disney animated movie with the song stuff.
It's gonna be a weird category to show at the Oscars because none of these outside of Husavik have a moment in the film where you can there isn't the shallow moment. There's these songs don't have it.
I will say Zack complaining about the songs that are not big parts of movies. All the Oscar winners lately are songs that are big parts of movies.
I think it helps wins. And I think that is. I was going to bring that up too. I think it helps. I think that's what gives Husavik slightly a little bit of a chance because I do think people will vote for that. It just I just think all ones that aren't in the movie shouldn't count, but then that limits your category to nothing.
Yeah, you'd have a very small category. Very, very, very small.
But it's just that
And we'd have Wuhan flew in this category, and no one wants that performed at the Oscars.
You do.
That's the thing. I think if it wasn't performed at the Oscars, I think that it would have been nominated. That's what I think.
I actually agree with you on this. I think the 100% the reason they did not want to nominate that is that they do not want to have a song performance of a song that talks about cutting people up and racist language related to a virus. And
I did look at the credits, but those two guys in the movie get nominated. If that song gets nominated, because in the movie he says they wrote it with him.
Maybe.
No, I don't think.
I don't think we need to nominate those guys. I think that's my main.
I don't think they actually wrote it with him. I think it was
just a joke.
I think they had a screenwriting team, I believe, behind the scenes.
That was Ed Sheeran's latest. He was going to use it for a single, but he gave it to Sacha Baron Cohen. He's like, just put it in your movie.
Do you think that music would be better if she snuck into Wuhan flu in the middle of the musical?
Oh, the movie music.
The movie music.
I feel like that's not crazy enough for the movie. That's like too grounded.
Okay.
The song Wuhan Flu is like too grounded.
Leslie Odom sings that.
Yeah. Maddie Ziegler. Please no. Moving on.
All right, moving on to a category with a great surprise. Best Director. We got the 4, Zhao, Fincher, Chung, and Fennell. And then we bumped Sorkin, and we got Vinterberg, and we should all be very happy with this.
It's cool.
That's a good category.
Cool.
That's a good category.
I love Vinterberg, so I should be happy for that too. Because once again, big Far From Madding crowd guy right here. It also really
and this is like the Pawlikowski run, right? Where it's like, at least for Zach, where it's like the movie you like the most is not the one that gets the director nod, but it's great that this person gets a nod at some point for their work.
I like Cold War better than Nita, so I'm happy.
That's Cold War. Not a
good.
I will just say this. I know Lucas is an enormous fan of this movie. I don't think that Emerald Fennell's direction is particularly great in Promising Young Woman. I think that the best parts of the movie are other stuff that's not the direction. It's not a terrible choice. I would have liked to see a couple other people in there. Regina King not being here is notable and interesting. And I think, a trend we haven't talked too much about yet, but is, the types of Black stories that they nominated this year, right? Where we'll see in Picture, certain omissions, movies that kind of lack a white voice tend to get left out. And that's why something like Judas, where at least has the Jesse Plemons character to point to and be like, this is the person we can point out as being bad or horrible or whatever. Like, to me, that's like the stuff that it seems like it tends to be, it's feeling rewarded this year.
I also feel like that movie, though, is made with such a Black voice.
No, it is. I know, but like there is at least that element, whereas something like One Night in Miami doesn't have that at all. And like I think that's interesting, something to at least like notice and take note of.
I would have thought One Night in Miami was a safer choice for what we would view as the White Academy because of its historical take.
In some ways, but I think just like
politically, it's pretty safe.
The scale of the whole thing, a little bit, yeah. But I just think as a trend, I've noted like it's interesting somewhat as a trend that it seems like the Academy can never pick more than one or two Black movies. It's like, oh, this is the one, and the rest of them sort of get ignored, which is like sucks.
Well, talking about only being able to pick a couple in a category, I do think the Regina King director, like not being there, is very much, and I said this on the predictions, I just didn't think they were going to pick 3 women. I think they had Fennell, they had Zhao, and I thought it was going to be Sorkin, but I'm not surprised that they replaced Sorkin with another white guy.
It's like a guy who's like respected and long time. This is like his dot. It is weird that this got director and not picture. I guess it sort of makes sense because he's like the auteur behind it, but a little bizarre, I think.
I'm kind of assuming that was more around the outside. I'm assuming it was number 9.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Cold War thing, right? Where it gets the weird director and not necessarily, a lot of other categories, but it is like that's the outside sort of like international feature that traverses other categories. Honeyland, similar sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty decent category. I do like Promising Woman a lot. She got the nomination, I think, because they like the movie.
Here.
No,
it's her debut.
I'm not necessarily going to stand on a soapbox and yell that Emerald Fennell is the reason that movie works, or like her direction is some amazing thing that is above the movie. Like, I think she does a good job.
I mean, it's a flashy debut. Like it's totally in line with the kind of stuff they like to celebrate. And I think it'll be nominated. It won't win. I think it's going to be tough for Chloe Zhao not to win this, especially. Fincher would have been the only candidate if the movie had a lot of heat behind it, but it feels like it doesn't. So I think it's pretty well in hand And I'm pretty stoked about it. You know, I would love Lee Isaac Chung to win as well, but Chloe Zhao is like, you know, someone I'd love to be celebrated at the Oscars.
The only worry I have with Nomadland at this point is that it is seen as such a front runner that people
don't pick at it.
Well,
it will be the target of like the microscope,
no.
And I'm sure
I wouldn't even argue that. My argument would be more that it is seen as such a front runner that people feel comfortable voting for something else, and enough people do that it kind of just gets bumped down slightly. But maybe. I don't think that's like
they're dumb.
I don't think that's lightly. I think it will probably win the majority of the awards. It's not like
first year ever with 2 Asian directing nominees, so that's cool.
And it's first year with 2 women, right?
As we're getting into picture and feature director, I do want to say I think because it's such a late runner that there really could be a Minari story that could disappoint Chloe Zhao and Nomadland. I see this as a real possibility as a dark horse because I think its buzz just came really late.
I think I really don't see it winning both. I think there's no way that.
Do you think it could win picture or director? Possibly.
I think more likely picture than director.
Yeah, I could see that more because then it's like you're celebrating. That feels like Alan Kim is a part of it. You're making everyone else like, whereas like
there's still a while for votes to be turned in, right? And it seems like the story is just building.
Yeah,
I think that if it's gonna happen, Zhao is so much the story of Nomadland more than any other person to that thing.
Are we at all surprised Darius Martyr did not get nominated based on the way that Sound of Metal is performing in all other categories and the general trend?
Qualities, especially being editing and sound editing, that I would have thought that could help him as well.
I would say no because he's not a name. He just doesn't have a name. The movie can get stuff, but he's just not a name. Like some of the
same with like Lee Isaac Chung.
But Lee Isaac Chung's movie has a lot more hype behind it.
I think I will say I do sort of. I think I know what Lucas means. It's like he's not really seen as like the major auteur of the project. Like when people talk about the movie, it's like they first talk about Riz Ahmed, Paul Raci, and then I even see in France might be like someone that people talk about just as much as Darius Martyr. I wonder if a lot of people even know that he's the one who directed it.
It's not Darius Martyr's The Sound of Metal. Like that's not the way people.
And it's also not his personal story, right? Whereas Lee Isaac Chung just feels like it's like his family, his roots. Emerald Fennell, it's her big debut. She's making this big splash. Like I'm not shocked, but I think there was a chance. I thought there was a chance that Darius Martyr, with the way that the noms were kind of stacking up, I thought he might get a director nom.
There.
Maybe over Winterberg.
Yeah.
Winterberg is a name though. In terms of international feature, he has more of a name. He's considered an auteur. Yeah. He's won foreign film before.
I'm getting a little pumped. That seems like there's an inevitable Christian Pencil nomination in the future. It's just like
we'll Undine 2021. Let's see.
Not Undine.
Best actor. I think pretty easy to predict, to be honest. No surprises. Boseman, Hopkins, Ahmed, Oldman, Young. I thought Oldman might fall out.
We guessed all
Young might fall out.
Right?
What?
I think we all guessed all this.
Yeah. So this is my 5. One of the couple categories you just kind of
obviously, the most talked about snub, the sort of big thing, right, is the Delroy Lindo thing, which like it's weird because we all sort of agreed that it was going to happen so early that I think we didn't fight for it enough. People weren't enough like, yeah, let's really do this. It was like, oh man, he's going to get snubbed, isn't he? For like 4 months. That's what it felt like to me. I'm still confused about Gary Oldman, especially like it seems like people are, the Academy nominated a lot. It doesn't seem like that's the most hot movie though. And like, he's also like not very good in it. I don't think it's like, he just won to weird nomination, the Gary Oldman thing.
Do you think that Delroy Lindo would have done better if they campaigned him in supporting? Like that was originally thought that's what it was going to be. That he might take the Lakeith spot.
No,
I don't think so. Unfortunately, I just think that was never going to work. Because he is like sort of the central. He's like the big force of the movie, right? And I think that like him and Chadwick would have been fighting it out for supporting in that movie. Because Chadwick got, I think, some of the Guild nominations, right? Because I think he got like a Golden Globe, maybe a SAG nom.
Yeah,
he seemed like a sure thing to me.
I think it was more than anything. It was that if Netflix had pushed back The Five Bloods to October or November, I think we'd be talking way more about Delroy Lindo. I think that just kind of falls into the trap of they dropped it too early. It was pre-opening up. He was like a pre-opening up the world again favorite. And then we opened up and we had more movies come out and he just kind of disappeared.
Yeah. Really sucks because it's like he has
He's so good.
It's not like he's like some young dude who's like going to get a ton of other chances to like have a performance like this, right? Like this could be one of the last times that he gets a role this big, this prominent, this, you know, hopefully I'm wrong. But I'm just worried that this was like the chance and they blew it.
Well, he's a lifelong character actor, kind of supporting player.
Yeah. But I will say, all that being said, it's amazing. First ever Asian actor and best lead actor. That's an amazing thing for me to celebrate. Riz Ahmed is an amazing
first
thing to
Muslim.
Well, Chadwick, first Muslim
actor,
ever be nominated. A predominantly actor of color lineup. Hopkins again, like maybe he's amazing. It's weird to me that he was always so locked because it's like he's won before. It's not like he's some respected guy that's never got his due, right? He's just like
it's been a while though. Feels like it's
last year. Last year he got nominated for best supporting actor for 2 Popes.
I always forget.
But yeah, it's a good lineup. I'm Bozeman doesn't seem like he'll have any much competition in this. It seems locked. I think that's part of the reason that Lakeith got put in supporting actors because they were like clear out for Chadwick. But yeah, about what we expected, but still cool that these people got nominated. Like Riz Ahmed in Sound of Metal. If you told me that 6 months ago, that would kind of blow my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of those like happy surprises that you woke up and you're like, oh, Stephen Yeun didn't fall out of this category. Like you were just happy that got it.
Because I'll just pretend, as great as he is in Minari, I'll just pretend this is for Burning and go on with my life.
That's fair. It's fair. Let's talk Best Actress. Not that interesting. Mulligan, Davis, McDormand, Day, Kirby. Kirby's so weird in that movie has no pop.
It is the wrong Vanessa Kirby nomination. She's much better in
it's
supporting.
I mean, yeah, but I'm saying like as far as like the performance, movie, that's like
it's just so. It's funny that movie was locked in, considering most people don't think that movie's very good. It has almost no footprint anywhere else.
I will say I'm surprised she stayed in because Ellen Burstyn fell out so fast because she was one of the two. Her and Seyfried were like the two front runners in like October and November, and all of a sudden Ellen Burstyn dropped like a stone in the lake. It was crazy. Like she just like totally fell out of the category altogether, which is weird.
As somebody who's seen the movie, Kirby's a lot better than Burstyn in the movie. I don't think Burstyn is. I think that was like we know who Ellen Burstyn is nomination. I think if you watch that movie,
it's surprising because Vanessa Kirby really only came onto the scene. I mean, really with Fallout. Like that's like her big first thing. That's like she got her really noticed. I mean, she's good in other stuff, but like
Crown, my friend.
I like it. Well, that's after. Isn't that after?
No, The Crown was before.
Oh, that's 7. That starts in 17. That's right. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, like it's a movie actress, like it felt like she was like sort of in this other basket, right? Where it's like we don't think of TV and movie actresses as the same thing all the time. I guess that's starting to fall away a little bit, but I do think that's like a little surprising that like she is just like this huge thing now.
Is it?
I think the surprising thing is people were ready for Claire Foy to be this big player from The Crown, and then Vanessa Kirby comes in and is like, no, this is my show. Claire
Foy is just not necessarily taken the best roles. That's been her problem so far.
I think she's pretty good in First Man, and
I'm not saying she's not. I think she's just been getting stuck in the wife roles.
I mean, in theory, the girl who kicks the hornet's nest or whatever girl with the spider's web. Sorry, she's that sounds like a thing that makes sense for her, but it just didn't work out.
That movie is terrible.
But as far as other nominees,
I feel like that was Claire Foy not knowing her energy.
Maybe. No, I mean, it's just trying something.
I think that was Claire Foy getting screwed, being the one person playing that role who did not get a good director, screenplay, performers around her.
Yeah. As far as the rest of the noms, though, like they're sort of obvious, but I'm kind of glad there's none of these that I'm honestly like so jazzed about. Like Carey Mulligan's my favorite actress. This is like my least favorite Carey Mulligan performance in like the last 7 or 8 years. Honestly,
she's about to win. So
I know that, and it's great that she's gonna. It's great that she's going to win an Oscar. This is just the classic thing, right? Where it's like your favorites never win for your favorite thing. It's always the thing that's like a little outside of that. But I'm not totally destroyed. McDormand's really great. She doesn't necessarily need a third Oscar, I think.
Give it to her. I want that to happen. I want her to be in the.
By the way, you said Katharine Hepburn has 4. You mentioned that
4. God damn it! I thought it was who else has 3?
Yeah. Actress is nobody. Everyone else has just got 2. Because Streep's got 2, one supporting. I'm talking about just best actress.
Yeah.
Jane Fonda has 2. Like a bunch of other people have 2 as well. But yeah. So I it's the rest of the nominees make sense. Andra Day, I haven't seen the movie. It's weird that she was so locked in so early for me for a movie that people don't really like. It seems like. So that's a little strange. I guess.
I think she has fans. I think it's just a flip. Still win, but it's another. People don't win for movies no one likes.
Here's the thing. I think Mulligan is the favorite. I think Day is my runner-up right now.
Yeah, just because the other two just won, you think?
Because Kirby feels like Kirby feels like whatever. Like she's at the back of the pack. Davis and McDormand just won. So there's not really that much push behind them. And I think in some ways this entire Oscar year was about being like, okay, we know McDormand is great as Nomadland. All right, which young person who hasn't won yet is going to knock her off the seat? And I think that's going to be Mulligan. But I think if it's not Mulligan, it's going to be Day, and it's just going to be this really random like ingenue performance.
That's going to be so weird. That's going to be so weird. That's such a movie that just like,
yeah,
good for her.
Yeah. Have you guys seen her in anything else? Is she in anything else?
I watched her perform that song at the Biden inauguration, and there was it was really the standout for this is there was while she was singing, there was someone figure blading, and I figured that was a thing. So not figure skating, they were roller blading, but it's like figure skating. It was amazing. Figure blading should be a thing. That was my takeaway about Andrade.
Fun fact: she has been in 2 movies before this. She plays the role of nightclub singer in Marshall, and she plays the role of Sweet Tea in Cars 3.
Oh god!
But she's primarily a musician. I think.
Yes,
so that's not.
Yeah.
This feels like decent. It's an okay crop. I feel like Best Actress is always very often just like I would have liked. To me, Yeri Han never even being in the conversation is insane, and she is like I think she's the best performance in Minari. I think she's incredible in that movie. I think the movie is like. Her character is like the soul of the movie in a lot of ways and is like the most interesting part about it. So like that was just always weird to me that she was never because I mean even Yao Yu Zhang, who's not a big famous actress either, was like locked in from day one. So that's always going to be strange to me.
I think it's easier to get locked in as a less famous name in supporting than it isn't lead.
Sure.
I think it's just that's the way it goes.
I will be forever amazed. I guess because this movie is completely inaccessible, but I feel like Jessie Buckley never be in the conversation because that's such a.
I think that movie just totally
too weird.
Because you would think that like something like adapted screenplay where that's such an interesting adaptation process, but like it just never.
But also just like when to be bored ingenues, like she's the one to go for it.
But that's not the performance of an ingenue. That's too weird.
Kind of.
It's
if she
so
had done
weird.
that first and then Wild Rose came this year, I think she would be nominated.
Yeah. The big one, Best Picture. Nomadland, Trial of Chicago 7, Minari, Mank, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal. That's the 6 I had predicted. I then had Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, One Night in Miami, and Defy Bloods, and they gave us The Father and Judas and the Black Messiah. I had 9, they gave us 8.
Hey, I just want to be known. I only missed 1, so I'm smarter than you.
Same. I had one night. I did not have Judas. I did not have Judas.
I had Judas.
You didn't have The Father.
I didn't have Sound of Metal.
Oh. Wow.
That was the one I didn't put. I was kind of amazed by where that was coming from. I don't know.
What do we think of this crop of Best Picture?
Pretty good. It's not like, amazing, incredible. There's one movie I don't really like. There's one movie I'm like kind of a shrug. The rest of them I like or haven't seen. But really just The Father I haven't seen. But I like the movies for the most part. Yeah, it's a good, it's interesting. It's got different sort of levels to it. There's not the big blockbuster. I think, in a more normal, quote, normal year, I think you'd see a big blockbuster in a crop like this. But
it's kind of why I thought Soul had a chance to be that blockbuster representative. But
I think an outside, once it didn't get screenplay, I figured, it's probably not going to get nominated for picture.
The discourse around Soul hurt it.
I think that.
Don't you think the streaming service heard it? That it wasn't actually a big blockbuster. It was just thrown on streaming services like anything else. That takes away the appeal of like it's not actually the $800 million movie like Black Panther. No, it's just another movie that went to a streaming service.
But they controlled the moment. I feel like there's still so much to talk about.
But sometimes
I think it never elevated into like really respected movie, which is why I think it missed out on a lot of the more like prestige noms that the sort of more respected Pixar movies get. Is just because it for some reason people never thought of it as like being. I think honestly the cat thing just ruined it. Literally, if you change the cat thing, I think this gets a Best Picture nomination. Legit. It
does feel like second tier Pixar in the eyes of a lot of people. Like it feels
like
the
moment people really loved it, and then once people examined it, I think the conversation did take it down a little bit.
Yeah. I'd be honest. If Trial of Chicago 7 is the worst movie in the Best Picture category, I feel like that's not that terrible of a year. especially considering recent years where we've had legitimately really bad movies in Best Picture.
There's no Bo Rap.
Yeah.
No
I don't know,
Vice. Well, I guess Vice is probably worse than Trial of Chicago 7.
Yeah.
Even last
I feel
year,
like we have
there
built
was
up.
really one. It was, I mean, to me, last year it was just Joker. Other than that, it was like,
yeah.
I think our negativity of Trial has also just built up by like comparison.
For sure.
None of us hated that much.
It's a decent. It's an okay slash like mediocre. I think mediocre is probably the word I would most apt.
I gave it a 3.5 when it came out, but I think it does get hurt every time you compare it to something like Judas, or you compare it to Mangrove, or there's just a lot of other movies in the same vein that are just a lot less schmaltzy and like, you know, goofy and don't have a dumb ending that is fake and not a real thing.
Hey, the most iconic ending since 500 Days of Summer. I will maintain.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
Hey,
other than that,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt respects the troops.
It's funny that those are both Joseph Gordon-Levitt movies. I didn't even really think about that. But no,
that's the weirdest part of Trial of Chicago 7. They're like, we need to have a nice white guy prosecuting them. And that's just such a bizarre choice. We need to like the white guy prosecuting.
I will say, we're spending a lot of energy on this movie. Other movies, great. Minari, amazing. Nomadland, amazing. Wonderful to celebrate movies. Great. I'm glad that Sound of Metal got a nomination. I was kind of worried it wouldn't. Stuck in there. Mank, I know a lot of people don't like it. I'm a big fan of Mank. Really like it a lot. Promising Young Woman is like, I have very complicated thoughts about that movie. I really don't even know fully.
Complicated, but still, I would say interesting and for it to be involved. Like,
there's some fraughtness there. I think for sure that I think is in the back of my mind. But yeah, honestly, I'm pretty hyped to see The Father. Like, I feel like I probably like it. I feel like I could love it. So let's go.
What if I come out tomorrow with a lot of negativity? This is going to change the whole night.
I feel like you're the least likely of the three of us to like it, though.
I don't know if that's true.
This feels like most of my.
No, he is a father. He is the titular role.
I am the father. And
I think you need to make
the underlying memory loss.
A movie dared to ask, what if there was
I think Theo should watch this movie and tell us what he thinks, because he has a father.
With memory loss.
Anyone has a father.
Well, he is the only one who has a father that's on the call right now.
Sure. Well,
I mean, who knows? Paul and I can get some weird
Theo is big Anthony Hopkins fan, but
I will say, if it's not Nomadland, who do you think plays spoiler? Do you think it's Minari? You think Trial? You think Trial has a legit chance?
No. I think a legit chance, but I think Minari was my spoiler. That's why I was called before.
I think it's Minari or Promising Young Woman. Weirdly, that would be my pick.
I say Nomadland, Minari.
Here's the thing: I'm not saying Promising Young Woman is the. I'm not saying Promising Young Woman is the overall highest acclaimed. I'm saying that there's a chance that if the vote gets split enough, Promising Young Woman might have a block of fervent supporters that could slip it through.
Movies like that barely get nominated, let alone win. So it's amazing.
This movie was a pretty clear going to get nominated.
I know it was, but it's still like a genre movie. It's odd that it got nominated in a lot of ways.
But it's a flashy character.
It's just a makeup for not giving Bo Burnham his due for 8th grade. No, I'm just kidding.
Yikes.
Good crop, though. I mean, could be so much worse. There are many worse movies that, and as much as like, I would have liked to see One Night get a nomination. I'm not devastated about it. I think Ma Rainey is just okay outside of, I think, the electric Chadwick Boseman performance. It is interesting, the types of movies the Academy gives attention to and doesn't. That's, of course, Trial of Chicago 7 is nominated and these other stuff aren't. But, I can't say I'm terribly shocked that Defy Bloods didn't get in, for example. I would have liked to see something like that get it, but
hey,
just not in the cards.
We avoided a Hillbilly Elegy nomination, and I feel good.
I would have been truly shocked if that happened. That was
like 40th in the odds or something.
I really thought another round was gonna. As soon as Vinterberg got, I was like, oh, another round is gonna get.
I want them to release the totals. I wonder if that's the 9. I wonder.
They should always release the count.
Yes, I want to. Please give us more data. Let us see where people are voting,
and especially for the winners. People would eat that shit. If you just made that a special, like a TV special, I think a lot of people would watch that. Like the vote totals of like who, maybe not as many people.
Do it for previous years. I want to know how much Green Book won by. I want to know if this was close. I want to know if I legitimately think that would be fascinating. Did Green Book blow everybody? Was it a 10% lead?
I think that's a case where they want to pretend that didn't happen, so I don't think they want to really go back to that Oscars.
Okay, even better. Tell us what the difference between Moonlight and La La Land was. How close was that actually? Was that a complete? No, but like legitimately, wouldn't you want like to go back and see? Like Moonlight won by 25% or Moonlight won by 0.3%. Like I would love to know.
The most likely outcome is I'm just bummed out because like something was really close and didn't end up winning. Like I feel like I'm fascinated, but yeah.
Oh, I just more interested in the end of the pack. Like I want to see like did these really like have any chance or would they get like one vote?
Darkest Hour, the post vote.
That's what I want.
2 votes.
You know what would be fascinating though is like every year we get to the best picture and we go, this is the number, this is last place. I would love to know how often that guess is right. Like maybe the last place this year is going to be like Mank. Maybe Mank, which we think has a chance, is going to be like last place. Like I don't know.
There's no way that would.
I think it has a better chance than something like Sound of Metal or something.
I don't.
Maybe no. I think it's just a bigger movie.
It's a better name to shout out from the envelope, and the winner is Mank.
This is how Zack Ford would vote for Oscars. We've talked all the categories. Let's talk about snubs. And I'm one of those people that believe that, like, when you say there's a snub, there needs to be 2 things in place for this to be a snub. One, you need to have a clear one you're going to take out. You cannot tell me there are 6 movies you want in this category and one of them is a snub. It's not a snub. You just had to pick between 6 really good options. And secondarily, the movie had to be roughly in contention. Like, I love Ben Affleck in The Way Back. Ben Affleck was not snubbed for The Way Back. Ben Affleck was never close for The Way Back. Does anyone have any ones that they think were relatively close that they would like in place of others?
Lindo's the obvious one, right?
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, they weren't like close, but I think both Sidney Flanigan for Never Really, Sometimes Always, and Julia Garner for The Assistant are both ones that I think like were sort of on the radar. Should have been there firmly. I think, First Cow for adapted screenplay is a big one. And outside of that, I don't know if there's a ton that were like really close. I mean, best documentary, I would have loved Dick Johnson's Dead, but I don't want to take all of Zach's. I feel like I'm taking a lot of Zach's corner here, but
no, good. Zach.
Yeah, I have a lot. Dick Johnson's Dead's my big one. That's one of my favorite movies of the year and putting that in. That'd be my pick. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm trying to think of best picture. A lot of my favorite movies weren't really close. I mean, I said it would take out Trial. Like News of the World, I like a lot. So if that would take place of Trial, I would have been happy. But never that Trial was going to lose that spot.
Yeah. Something instead of close for Elegy. I don't know.
I think never rarely getting something like at least like a screenplay or an actress. Or just something to acknowledge that movie in general, I think would have been nice. An original screenplay for Palm Springs would have been fun. Obviously, that was probably not going to happen.
Honestly, some of the biggest snubs came in a short list for score, which is like Nomadland.
Yeah, well, Nomadland, a lot of that's not original. Okay. A big bulk of that music is not original.
And I would have said First Cow, but I guess that probably never really had a real chance.
Probably not. Yeah, as much as I really like the music for that, that's probably like a little off the radar.
Yeah.
But I think other than that, really a lot of it's stuff that we really like that was never good. To me, it's weird the Nest never entered any category at all.
Yeah.
I
Carrie
see
Coon
really
great in that.
I would have put in Black Klansman for cinematography instead of Trial.
The Five Bloods, you mean? Not Black
Klansman. The Five Bloods. Sorry, the Five Bloods. I'm real tired.
And one that had a lot of buzz early was Brian Dennehy in Driveways, who was really great in that movie, but for some reason totally fell out. Was never even close in the discussion. So
it's a really small movie. Really small movie. I think it's just kind of what ended up doing that.
Yeah, just did it in. And then most of my other favorites are either stuff that's like Small Axe, which is not really like theatrical release kind of thing, or Vast of Night and Shithouse were never getting nominated. So most of the stuff I wanted was like a little outside of the realm of what we normally get. Which
And I talked about Elizabeth Moss. It's kind of weird that she kind of disappeared. Maybe had 2 competing movies. I would have put her for surely, and other people would have done Invisible Man, but her instead of Vanessa Kirby.
The genre of those movies is what I think surely is just that's not a award
biopic. Can you just call it?
It's
biopic?
It's not a biopic. It's so not a biopic. It's too weird. People would be turned off by it.
A Josephine Decker biopic is not the same thing as a Lee Daniels biopic.
Honestly, I also love Michael Stolberg in that, but he was never in the conversation.
Yeah, I think the biggest one you mentioned is the Small Axe. I really do, looking back, wish they had pulled out Mangrove. I think Mangrove would have done very well if they had pulled it out.
If it was eligible, do you think Hamilton would have dominated the nominations?
No.
I don't
think so.
The stage
you think so?
I think people. I think if it had been, I think even if they had said it was eligible, there would have been a backlash of it's just filmed. Why are we giving a filmed play a bunch of nominations? Like,
especially from the film industry, right? Where it's
the
like
film industry would be like, do you film it? I think also the biggest problem with Hamilton is Hamilton won 1 billion Tonys. The film industry would have gone, you already got your Tonys. We're not giving you Oscars too. Like, go away. Like, I think that would have been the general like response.
That's fair.
I think if any chance, maybe an acting nomination or 2. That's it.
Maybe like I think. Well, I mean, it would have done like good in song. It probably would have gotten a couple. Well, I mean, the problem was
the whole song nomination would have just been.
It probably would have been all Hamilton, but I don't think it would have done.
I could have seen the Odom or David Diggs sneaking in.
Or Christopher Jackson. I think Christopher Jackson honestly is one of them. But again, this is a long.
That's
thing.
a you take.
We can go. I like Jackson. He's really good. He's really, really good. Probably my number 2 after Diggs. I mean, the biggest one is I really wish that Sean Parks was in Best Actor for Mangrove, because I think he's the best in that category right now.
Malachi Kirby could have.
I think Malachi Kirby is the.
Letitia Wright, I think, could have played into this odd supporting actress.
Boyega probably would have been well. Screenplay. Steve McQueen Steve McQueen would be that 5 instead of Vinterberg.
Cinematography for Mangrove, like if you put Chicago 7 cinematography over Mangrove, that's just appalling on how you shoot a courtroom.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it would have changed the way that people see Trial, right? If that would have been like a contender.
I think cinematography is like key to Mangrove.
That would have been a huge narrative if you had Mangrove running against Trial of Chicago. Like that would have been like that comparison we were making ourselves watching the movies. But if that was directly in every single Oscar race was, are you a Mangrove person or a Trial of Chicago 7 person? I feel like there would be very different nominations because most people would have had to pick
I think I would still have a lot, but yeah, it would change the dynamic a little bit and make it.
But what would have hurt though is if it canceled the vote with some other small X films.
Yeah,
but here's the thing: I think it's the only one that gets pulled out. The other ones are not really full move. They're too short. They don't think they would have run.
I firmly believe Mangrove would have had 10+ nominations.
Probably, I think it would have.
And I will always say this. I always think it's weird that they don't like more weird genre movies in something like visual effects, cinematography. I think like Possessor. I don't know if either of you have seen Possessor.
I have.
That's a movie that should have got a bunch of technical. Like in a Just World, that gets like a visual effects, that gets a cinematography. Like the visual components of movies like that are so interesting. And it's weird that stuff. I mean, it is classic Academy stuff. They are the forgotten Ivan, I guess, of the world. As opposed to the one and only 2-time Oscar nominated, I believe, one and only Ivan. But yeah.
It is weird. I mean, it always the tech categories, unfortunately, just becomes like which of the best picture nominees can we put in tech categories? Like I feel like that happens every year, and then you get like one or two interesting ones per category, but it's for bigger stuff.
And they're always from big directors.
It's always like Tenet or something, or well, where's the Avengers movie? Or like it's something that's larger. No, go ahead.
My one last thought is that it's very important to get those 2 nominations because if you don't give it to Ivan now. There's only one of them. You can never get to him again.
Hey, I am the forgotten Ivan, so don't forget me like Disney Plus did.
I think the last question I want to ask before we end this, we've been going a long time, is what do you guys think are the narratives we are going to follow from now until we come back here and we're gonna do shows predicting the winners and recapping the winners in April. I just want to, what do you guys what's the narrative you're following?
Mank is gonna tank. That's a big one. I think
just because of the ride.
Maybe 1 or 2. I think that's part of it for sure. That's if someone can build that narrative, there we go. But I think like it might go blank. There's another rhyme there.
Doesn't work
but,
as well.
But I think I think that's going to really sink because I think people are going to be like, how does this get the most noms? A lot of people not respecting and not liking it. Bit of a mini sort of backlash there. I think Boseman's kind of unimpeachable. I just don't see anything cracking that. I don't see any narrative arising that's going to change that. I think actress could go a lot of different ways. I think Viola still is in it. I think there's a chance that flips and she becomes back in play for that. I think supporting actor is interesting. I think that's probably Kaluuya's, but is there a small chance that some vote splitting goes on and maybe someone sneaks in there potentially? I think that's in the cards.
Racy?
Maybe it's hard to totally imagine because he does have that strong narrative.
Great.
Here's the thing. I do think Racy has a shot in that category. I think that we clearly just saw these nominations. That movie has more support than we thought it did. And if they're going to coalesce behind one thing in that movie, Racy's the thing to do it because Riz Ahmed doesn't have a shot.
Yeah. And then Nomadland, I think there could be a mini thing of like, should this have been a documentary, which has sort of already started.
I hate those conversations.
I think there's some interesting things to question about it, but I think that's one of the weird things. I feel like most of the stuff, the rest of the stuff is kind of going to hold steady. Time, I think, is really in jeopardy. I don't think you can tell who the favorite is really in documentary. That's always a bit of a crapshoot. I think it's like, you show up and hopefully that wins that day. But the rest of the other categories, I think, are pretty locked in. I think Leslie Odom for best song. I don't see them losing that. I think that Reznor and Ross and Baptiste for Soul, pretty hard to see that losing. Sound going to Sound of Metal. Like a lot of that stuff is pretty locked in. Soul, there's no way that loses best as animated feature. Maybe International gets weird and Winterberg doesn't win somehow. But
International is one of those ones that like can be as unpredictable as documentary unless there's one film everyone's heard about and then it dominates.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe Collective has some steam. I have no idea.
I feel like foreign film has been pretty predictable.
Probably.
Recently. I think more recently than before.
But I think also that's because
there's been
people in Best Foreign Film have become more famous as individuals, so that when we see Parasite in Best Foreign Film, we know who Bong Joon-ho is going into that. He's not something we're having to discover as the season unfolds.
We've had huge players recently. We had Parasite, we had Roma. These are like dominant players.
And to be fair, the other international ones, they're not really auteur driven. There's not a big name. Even like the year that Cold War was like nipping at the heels, right, where that was like got the director nomination and it had like an auteur behind it, so like it had a possibility. So doesn't really have that, I guess. But yeah, I don't see a lot of maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see a lot of narratives emerging that'll change a lot.
I think the two I'm most interested in is watching The Rise of Minari, that I think could be real.
Star Wars Episode 10, The Rise of Minari is going to be
The Rise of Minari.
I would watch.
And supporting actress, because I think it is kind of a little more unpredictable. I want to see if Bakalova, can.
I think if that Minari thing does rise, I think
I think for me, I'm interested. Mank is an interesting one because I think it is either going to get nothing or it is going to get a lot. Like it is either going to sweep.
There could be a backlash to the backlash where people are like, are shitting on Mank. Hell, fuck you. This is great. Whatever.
There could be. I also think that it's going to be interesting to see if Nomadland holds its position in the categories it's in.
It's kind of scary when you're the favorite so early. Like it was the favorite in like November.
I saw somebody compare it to Roma, which is another movie that had like a lot of favorite status in categories. And then I don't think, and this is a weird thing to say, I don't think the movie got complacent, but the positioning almost got complacent.
My thing is that had Cuarón, who'd already won. Zhao was on an upward trajectory, especially with Eternals coming out. McDormand is like really well liked. There was no central acting figure in Roma to like anchor the movie in people's minds. It's like, oh, this is the Frances McDormand thing. Again, quick thing. Snub. David Strathairn. Why was he not nominated for Best Supporting Actor? So good in Nomadland, I think.
Wasn't even really in the conversation, weirdly.
No, he was like at the fringe, which is weird. But yeah, I think that movie has the markers that I think will allow it to stay the favorite. There's a chance something comes and unseats it, but I think it's got a little more steady hold than something like Roma, which was again weird. It had the Netflix part of it too. That was complicated. It had the foreign language aspect, which at that point none had ever won. So it had some weird stuff going on.
Yeah, I think Best Picture is interesting because when you have something that seems like the favorite for that long, you do start to wonder, is there a chance something sneaks in? Director is kind of the same thing, although a little bit lesser, because I do think no matter losing picture is way more likely than Zhao losing director. I'm interested to see if any of the other acting categories get solidified. I feel like actor is really solid. I'm interested to see if any of the other ones can get a clear lead.
Kaluuya is pretty close to that, I think.
Kaluuya is really close. I have questions because of how late the movie came in. I wonder, that's one of those things that like
maybe Baron Cohen has more juice than we're giving it just because we don't like that movie that much.
He might. He really might. And also it's always interesting to see something like Kaluuya seems really strong right now, but he's barely been in this race, and it's always interesting to see.
And that movie's suddenly harder to find because it's not on HBO Max. They got taken off HBO Max today.
Which, interestingly enough, was probably not a great move if you're HBO Max. Like, take the little things off. Take Tom and Jerry. None of those things
Tom
are
and Jerry's still on for 3 more weeks. Rise of Tom and Jerry. It's gonna protrude through these nominations.
But Tom and Jerry are both Best Supporting Actors, so there's no way you can't nominate any of them in lead because they're the 2 title characters.
Absolutely.
Deletes the rapping pigeon.
Spies in Disguise too.
Oh. All right. I think we've talked Oscar nominations. We talked narratives. There will be a pod. We will be coming back. Some combination of people in April to talk about predictions, winners. Paul, if you'd like to be on,
sorry,
invite.
Who's Paul? My name is Kaleb Koho. I've been speaking. All opinions reflect those of Kaleb Koho.
The king, Multivax admin, Kaleb Koho. Would you like to be on in those shows?
Potentially. I don't know what my schedule is going to be like. I'm really busy running fandom. I might have to dye my hair a different color pretty soon coming up. And I'm just hanging out, so we'll see.
There's a very important bet that may or may not involve the only chance we can talk about Curious Case of Benjamin by the show, so you should be part of it.
Zack really should have somebody else bet for him because he sucks at Oscar predictions. We have experience. You really should have somebody else who's better at it.
You are basing this all on 1 year.
No, 2 years.
I've only done one. I've never done 2 years with you.
Okay,
I didn't do 2 years.
Dude, I beat you I think you lost by like 9 picks or something. It was not close.
Yeah, and the rules were weird. I have issues. It's okay.
There was no weird rules. You just picked the wrong movies in multiple categories. You can complain about the punishment rules. You cannot complain about the actual rules of it. You just were not good at predicting Oscars. Yeah. Thank you everybody for watching. I don't know how we went 2 hours talking about Oscar nominations,
but I guess this was gonna be a half hour. Shame on me.
We thought the same thing yesterday, and then it went like an hour and 15. My voice is dying. I don't know if you can tell. We will be back. Special content, bonus content coming. Regular episodes coming. Thank you, Kaleb Koho, for appearing.
You can find my album "Shoot for Teams" by my group The Forks on Spotify, wherever you find music. The GOAT, great song.
Check out Multiplex Entertainment on YouTube, where he runs fandom fights.
Do you want to end the show, the traditional song, by you singing the GOAT?
No, that's a special song. Only streams get that one. I have to get paid if I'm gonna get
music performances with our guests.
Oh, yeah. I'm aware.
One of our biggest fans. All right, we're done.
That's how we end.
We're done. I got nothing else. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Oscars. We'll wait a month, and then we'll find out who wins. Watch the rest of our stuff. We got fun stuff coming.
You can say bye. We're doing a real Irish goodbye right now.
Wolfwalkers on Friday. Saturday. Wolfwalkers on Saturday. We just talked about Wolfwalkers. Wolfwalkers is great.
Yeah. That's how we're on the show. Running with the Wolves tonight. Running with the Wolves.
All right. See you then. Bye-bye.